Chapter 11:20. Demon Clan rushed over, Tang Jing waved his hand, and the War Soul Sword on the ground flew into his hand. However, the War Soul Sword started to tremble violently, as if it could leave his hand at any time. Pinnacle Novel. Tang Jing frowned. Previously, the War Soul Sword was controlled by Qiyu, but now, it seemed that the War Soul Sword was still under Qiyu's control, and he was actually unable to communicate with the War Soul Sword. Of course, he could not let the War Soul Sword return to Qiyu's hands. With a thought, he kept the War Soul Sword into the Sumeru world, cutting off the connection with Qiyu. He immediately took out the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow, bent the bow and knocked the arrow. With a whoosh, the sun-shooting arrow flew out, piercing through the bodies of the few demon clanness at the front, and then whistled through the crowd. Puff, puff, puff. Blood splattered everywhere as people fell under the sun-shooting arrow. Seeing his clansmen fall one by one, Saint King's eyes were filled with killing intent. He snorted heavily and said, "You're really strong, fall down for me." The sage spread out his palm and a fist-sized axe appeared in his palm. The axe radiated a great amount of light and suddenly became bigger. In the end, it turned into a huge axe, and on its surface, there were complicated veined patterns engraved. Holy artifact. Tang Jing's pupils constricted as he immediately recognized it. "You still have some eyesight. It's your honor to die under my heaven-splitting axe." Saint King pointed his finger, and the heaven-splitting axe flew into the sky. It descended from the sky and fiercely chopped towards Tang Jing. Tang Jing snorted coldly and said, "You should leave this honor to yourself." Tang Jing moved his mind, and the sun-shooting arrow flew back, transforming into a ray of light, and collided with the heaven-splitting axe. Flowing light overflowed with brilliant colors as it spread out in all directions. The few individuals standing at the very front were affected, and they were directly sliced apart at the waist by this streak of light, dying on the spot. It was a bloody scene. Tang Jing didn't even blink because he retreated a few meters before he could stabilize his body. He stopped and looked at Saint King in shock. He couldn't see through Saint King's cultivation, but there was no doubt that it was higher than his. Moreover, he had the help of a divine weapon like the heaven-splitting axe. Tang Jing understood that he was no match for him, so he decided to retreat. He didn't want to face the devil race's army head-on. If not for Qiyu's return, he would have returned to Wuxia long ago. The demon race had the advantage in numbers. Moreover, even Qiyu had appeared, so he didn't dare to stay any longer. Seeing the sky-splitting axe attack again, Tang Jing hurriedly dodged, trying to dodge. However, the sky-splitting axe's attack was fast, ruthless, accurate, and flexible. Tang Jing had nowhere to hide. At this critical moment, a light flashed in Tang Jing's hand as he summoned the holy armor shield. Bang! A sound wave spread in all directions, and Tang Jing flew far away like a cannonball. He landed heavily on the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Saint King's strength was too strong, and Tang Jing was no match for him at all. He leaped up like a carp and got up again. He rushed toward the cliff not far away and jumped off the cliff. Whoosh! The War Soul Sword flew back into his hand at the speed of lightning. Whoosh! Water splashed everywhere and he fell into the sea. Saint King also caught up, but looking at the boundless sea, he stomped his feet unwillingly, but there was nothing he could do. "How useless, you actually let him escape." Qiyu's voice sounded again and he reprimanded sternly. Saint King lowered his head and didn't dare to refute. A person's name, a tree's shadow. Although Qiyu was only left with a strand of soul, Saint King still didn't dare to disobey him. "Ancestor, what should we do next? What about that 100 Faces Star Lord?" Qiyu didn't answer but asked instead. The sage's heart skipped a beat, and he raised his eyes to look around. There was no sign of the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign. His face immediately turned gloomy like a piece of black charcoal and he said, "How cunning. I actually let him escape." Both of them escaped. "Fine, as long as you guys return, it's only a matter of time before we catch them. With Ancestor here, dealing with them is a piece of cake," Saint King said flatteringly. Qiyu hadn't enjoyed such treatment for many years. When he was in Tang Jing's body, he was squeezed until he was choked. However, when he thought of Tang Jing, Qiyu was very dissatisfied. This was because Qiyu's heart stayed in Tang Jing's body, which was definitely convenient for Tang Jing. Qiyu's heart contained too much power and energy. If Tang Jing completely digested it, his cultivation would definitely rise to another level. In addition, he was only left with a strand of soul. Even if he was reborn, his cultivation would be greatly reduced, and he couldn't be compared to his peak in the past. All in all, the current situation wasn't what he wanted. He carefully planned for so long, but in the end it ended up like this. Just thinking about it made him angry. First, tell me what's going on in Beyond Heaven. Qiyu controlled his anger and asked the question he had always been curious about. In the past, before Mount Buzhou was broken, he sent many people to explore Beyond Heaven, but these people didn't return and they didn't bring back any news at all. This matter had always been a regret for him. Now that the Devil Clan had returned, the matter of Beyond Heaven was naturally no longer a secret. Although Saint King didn't know why Qiyu was so eager to know the situation in Beyond Heaven, his face became bitter when he recalled the various things in Beyond Heaven, and he resentfully explained. As Qiyu listened, he felt that it was inconceivable and even exclaimed, Tang Zheng emerged from the sea. He had been swimming for a long time and was very far away from the Devil Clan. His expression was very solemn. Now, not only had the Devil Clan returned, but even Qiyu had also left his body and obtained freedom. Now that the Devil Clan and Qiyu were together, it was obvious that nothing good was going to happen. In the past, he didn't have a strong impression of Qiyu. Although he had always been wary of him, this time he realized that he had really underestimated him. Ordinary people couldn't guess Qiyu's thoughts, and he was vicious and merciless, definitely not inferior to the Hundred Faces Star-Lord, perhaps even surpassing him. Tang Zheng couldn't guess what he was going to do next, but it was definitely not something good. Moreover, the Devil Clan had returned with the hatred of the past, so they were going to go all out, and this world was going to be completely chaotic. Young man, quickly let me out, I'll help you deal with Qiyu, the inner demon suddenly said. You have a way to deal with him? Of course, back then he and the Yellow Emperor painstakingly sealed me, you should know that I'm a threat to him. As long as you let me out, we can definitely deal with him together. The inner demons couldn't wait to say. When he saw the power of Tang Zheng's dragon seal, he gradually dispelled the idea of taking over Tang Zheng's body. He felt that it was better to find a new body as long as he could be reborn, then he would be like a fish swimming into the sea and no one could stop him. Tang Zheng pondered, the inner demons were definitely not easy to deal with, he actually summoned Qiyu and the Yellow Emperor to join forces to seal him, one could imagine how big of a threat he was. If he let him go, wouldn't it be like letting a tiger return to the mountain? Seeing Tang Zheng hesitate, the inner demons quickly persuaded, young man, I'm a man of my word, I'm definitely not a treacherous villain like Qiyu, as long as you let me out, I'll definitely help you. Okay, then I'll let you out. After a long while, Tang Zheng finally made up his mind. The inner demons were an unknown quantity, but one thing was certain, and that was that the inner demons and Qiyu were definitely not on the same side, and there would definitely be a fierce battle between the two sides. He hoped that this could temporarily suppress Qiyu so that he wouldn't be too arrogant and unscrupulous. Great, you definitely won't regret this decision. The inner demons was overjoyed and quickly complimented. Tang Zheng didn't comment, his divine sense entered Qiyu's heart, and immediately saw the inner demons trapped in the cage, his face full of expectation. Can't you open this cage yourself? Tang Zheng asked. The inner demons looked bitter. I don't know what method Qiyu used, but I can't break out of this cage. Then I'll give it a try. Tang Zheng circulated his power and punched the cage. Bang. The loud sound spread far and wide, and the cage trembled a few times, but it was safe and sound. Tang Zheng didn't expect the cage to be so sturdy. He had used all of his power, but he still couldn't shake it. The inner demon's face became more and more ugly. After thinking for a while, he suggested, try using the power of the dragon seal again. Okay. Tang Zheng circulated the dragon god technique, and the golden dragon immediately flew out of the dragon seal and coiled around his arm. Roar! Amidst the dragon's roar, Tang Zheng's fist once again hit the cage. Bang! The sound was louder and the trembling was more intense, but in the end the cage still steadily stopped, and there was no sign of it being damaged. The inner demons rolled his eyes and almost fell to the ground, exclaiming, Impossible, how is this possible? There must be a way to open this cage. Tang Zheng remembered Qiyu's words and said, Qiyu once said that other than him, no one else can open this cage. The inner demon shook his head and said, Impossible, that was just a trick he used to scare people, there must be another way. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, I've already tried, you saw it too, I can't open the cage so I can't let you out. Tang Zheng said that this was the will of the heavens, although he wanted to use the inner demons to suppress Qiyu, but now it seemed that this beautiful hope had been shattered. In fact, this wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, the inner demons was an unknown factor, and if he was more dangerous than Qiyu, then he would have no chance of winning against two powerful enemies. He withdrew from Qiyu's heart and looked in the direction of the island nation. The wind had long since faded and there were no dark clouds. Perhaps the rest of the world still didn't know that the island nation had changed, that this country had already perished, and that the people living on it were a group of even more ferocious people. My family definitely doesn't know about this news. I must immediately inform them and let them be fully prepared. The demon race definitely won't just stay on this tiny island nation. They will definitely return to Wuxia. Chapter 11:21. A person flew over from the sky. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind, making her look like an otherworldly fairy. Even though they were far apart, Tang Jing was able to recognize her from her familiar aura. He leaped up and flew up from the sea. He rushed into the air and shouted, "Fu Yao!" The Empyrean fairy looked down and saw Tang Jing. She asked in surprise, "Why are you here?" The two of them landed on the surface of the sea. Their feet stepped lightly on the water as if they were walking on flat ground. Tang Jing sighed, "It's a long story. Why are you here?" The Empyrean fairy could not hide the seriousness between her eyebrows. She glanced in the direction of the island nation and said, "I found a strange phenomenon in the island nation. Did something happen?" Tang Jing said solemnly, "The Devil Clan has returned." What? The Empyrean fairy raised her eyebrows. She could not hide her surprise. "How many of them?" "I don't know. Anyway, there are many of them. There are many experts among them," Tang Jing said in a deep voice. He looked at the Empyrean fairy with a strange look in his eyes. "Hey, your aura has changed a lot. Could it be that your power has increased greatly?" The Empyrean fairy absorbed the energy of the crystals on the island, so her power would naturally increase. However, Tang Jing felt different. The Empyrean fairy gave him an unfathomable feeling. This was not as simple as a little improvement. A hint of joy flashed across the Empyrean fairy's face. She said, "Didn't your cultivation also improve a lot? You actually reached the first grade of the semi-god realm so quickly. Did you have a fortuitous encounter?" Tang Jing smiled bitterly. "It's not a fortuitous encounter. It's just a narrow escape. I almost lost my life." After a pause, Tang Jing asked again, "What's your cultivation level?" "The first grade of the Mahayana realm." "So high," Tang Jing exclaimed. The Empyrean fairy had only been in the divinity transformation stage. It was commendable for her to break through that threshold so quickly. "If it weren't for your crystals, I wouldn't have been able to progress so quickly," Empyrean fairy said emotionally. Tang Jing's heart skipped a beat. He asked, "What about the crystals?" The Empyrean fairy understood what he was thinking and said, "The crystal has shrunk a lot. In time it will be completely absorbed. At that time the scarlet lunar beast will be able to come out." Tang Jing was overjoyed. "That's great." The scarlet lunar beast was hiding too many secrets, especially the secrets about the outer heaven. Once the scarlet lunar beast was freed, perhaps he would have the chance to find out. Besides, now that the demons have returned, Qiyu will definitely know about the situation in the heavens beyond. On the other hand, Tang Jing and the others were at a loss. He really didn't like this feeling. "You just said that you had a narrow escape. Could it be related to the return of the demons? You've already fought them head-on?" The Empyrean maiden suddenly thought of something and asked curiously. Tang Jing smiled bitterly. "You guessed right. Let me tell you bit by bit." After Tang Jing finished speaking, the Empyrean fairy fell into deep thought. Her expression became more and more serious. She said, "Qiyu and the inner demons have always been in your body?" Obviously this was unexpected news. Tang Jing didn't mention it to anyone else. Tang Jing nodded. At this point there was no need to hide it anymore. The Empyrean fairy looked at him deeply. She didn't pursue the matter. She understood that everyone had their own secrets. It was impossible to tell everyone. The ever-changing Star Lord is such a troublemaker. He actually activated the mountains and rivers blood sacrifice formation and used the lives of an entire nation to summon the demons back. He's insane, the Empyrean fairy said in a stern voice. At this point we should think of a countermeasure. The demons have Qiyu and so many experts. We may not be their match. Tang Jing said in a deep voice. The Empyrean fairy nodded. "If I didn't meet you, I would definitely make a trip to the island nation. Since that's the case, there's no need to go." The Empyrean fairy wasn't afraid of the demons. She knew that what was done was done. Even if she went to the island nation, she wouldn't be able to change the situation. On the contrary, it would let the demons know that she had reached the Grand Ascension realm. They would be more cautious and have fewer openings. The demons were currently very arrogant. They would definitely make a rash move and make mistakes. Once this mistake was made, they would be able to give them a fatal blow. This was a brilliant countermeasure. Tang Jing was extremely intelligent and immediately understood the Empyrean fairy's thoughts. he said, "Let's go home first." In the capital, when they returned, they found that there were many strange people around their house. However, because of the protection of the formation, these people could only watch from afar and couldn't set foot in the villa. When they saw Tang Jing return, there was a strange movement in this group of people. Tang Jing coldly swept a glance and saw a person walking over with large strides. Tang Jing stopped and narrowed his eyes. He judged that this person was definitely from the government because of his official aura. Sure enough, this person walked in front of Tang Jing and said with a serious expression, "Tang Jing, please come with us and cooperate with an investigation." Tang Jing frowned and asked, "What investigation?" "Everyone knows what you have done in the island nation. Kidnapping the emperor in front of everyone has already caused a dispute between countries. The island nation has already protested to us and asked us to hand you over." Tang Jing's mouth revealed a trace of ridicule and said, "It seems like you don't know what happened in the island nation?" "Of course I know. Kidnapping the emperor is an extremely terrible and terrifying act. You will become the public enemy of the entire world." Tang Jing was already sure that this person did not understand the real situation, and asked back, "The island nation no longer exists? What's the use of threatening me?" "No longer exists? What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think you can escape responsibility with this nonsense?" Tang Jing rolled his eyes. He was too lazy to waste his breath on someone who did not understand the situation. He turned and walked while saying, "I'm in a bad mood, you better not ask for a rebuff. If you want to capture me, I'll be waiting for you. You better go back and understand the situation. What exactly happened in the island nation?" "Stop." The person who came shouted loudly. His mission was to bring Tang Jing back for investigation, but he did not expect that Tang Jing would not cooperate at all. Just as he was about to reach out and grab him, he found that he had touched an invisible wall. Then he was fiercely bounced back and sat on the ground watching Tang Jing enter the villa. Tang Jing did not have the energy to pay attention to such a small character. As for who he was not at all interested. Compared to the intrigue in the officialdom, the demon race was the most troublesome problem. Tian Chanzi had already received a call and was waiting at home. He was someone who had seen the Mountain River blood sacrifice array with his own eyes, so although he was far away, he was still certain that the island nation had activated the Mountain River blood sacrifice array again. He was about to rush over to investigate when he received a call from Tang Jing. After a few words of explanation, he anxiously waited at home. He paced back and forth, the floor almost cracking from his footsteps. The others also returned home one after another, their expressions grave. Although they did not know what exactly had happened, they had already realized that the matter was definitely very serious. Otherwise, Tang Jing would not have called them back one by one, and even Tang Linger and Princess An were called back. Only Mu Hongyan was still dealing with the follow-up problems in the pharmaceutical factory and could not return for the time being. However, he had also sent more Witch clan warriors to protect him, with Yi Yuan personally leading the team. When the two of them returned to the villa, a ray of light flashed in the backyard, and the transmission array was activated. After the light disappeared, the Witch clan elder appeared. The hall of the villa was already filled with people. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu were also among them. When Tang Jing and Empyrean Fairy walked in, everyone immediately looked at him in unison and many people stood up. Tian Chanzi suddenly stopped in his tracks, walked towards him with long strides and asked, "You said that the demon clan has returned, what exactly is going on?" He did not explain it clearly on the phone, but Tian Chanzi's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat, as he desperately wanted to know more details. The others did not know about the return of the demon clan, but when they heard this, they were all shocked and looked at Tang Jing without blinking. Tang Jing's expression was serious. He swept his gaze across the crowd, looked at their worried expressions and said, "The demon clan has indeed returned, and it is not like last time when there were only 100 or so people. This time there are thousands of people and it is the main force of the demon clan. The demon clan was a part of the cultivators, and they were cruel and unscrupulous. Back then, New Era had expelled them to the sky beyond heaven, and now that they had returned in large numbers, they would definitely come for revenge. At that time, they would definitely be in a terrible situation, and as for how the demon clan returned, all of this was caused by the 100 Transformation Star Lord." Tang Jing spoke tirelessly, explaining the whole story clearly. When everyone heard that the island nation had been annihilated, they all turned pale with fright and cried out in alarm. A chill ran from the soles of their feet to the top of their heads. This move of the 100 Transformation Star Lord was indeed too ruthless. The hall was very quiet. No one spoke for a long time as they were all immersed in shock. When the witch clan elder heard that Chiyu was not dead, the wrinkles on his face trembled a little, and his expression was complicated. Seeing that no one else spoke, the elder said, "Sir Envoy, Chiyu is the ancestor of the witch clan, and has a deep relationship with the witch clan. Can we persuade him to stop and not harm innocent people?" Tang Jing looked deeply at the elder. This time, he had specially invited the elder over because he did not want to hide it from him. The witch clan was a member of the Ninely tribe, and had a deep relationship with Chiyu. If he did not tell him the truth now, it would cause him to be unhappy in the future. As for what the witch clan would choose, he believed in his own judgment. He had been in contact with the witch clan for so long, and he thought that he understood the witch clan very well. The witch clan was a simple and kind race. They did not have the cruelty and ruthlessness of the demon clan. Furthermore, the elder was a kind-hearted person. The elder was nervous. Seeing Tang Jing look over, he hurriedly added, "Sir Envoy, I will take the initiative to go and talk to him." Chapter 11:22. Although Tang Jing did not agree with his opinion, the elder was not angry. Compared to the rumors of Chiyu, he trusted Tang Jing even more. If not for Tang Jing, the witch clan would probably still be trapped in the 10,000 huge mountains. Tang Jing had given the witch clan a new lease on life, and the entire witch clan was deeply grateful. Then what should we do, Lord Envoy? Tang Jing fell into deep thought, and the others also fell into deep thought. Suddenly, Tian Chanzi raised his head and said, "We are weak, even with the addition of the martial artists, we are not a match for the devil clan. We must find help." "Where is the helper? Could it be that we are going to find Lord Ji Wuxiang?" Wu Junshan asked doubtfully. Wu Junshan and Ji Wuxiang's enmity was not small, how could he bow his head to him? Tian Chanzi shook his head. Ji Wuxiang may not be a match for the devil clan. For thousands of years, who is the only one who can resist the devil clan? The righteous path. Everyone thought of an answer in their hearts. The devil clan was very united, but the righteous path was a large-scale concept. The righteous path was derived from the Yellow Emperor's tribe, and eventually evolved into many sections. These sects were not as united as the devil clan, and each of them governed their own affairs. Although their combined strength was strong, they had not completely exterminated the devil clan after so many years. Tian Chanzi's original sect, Kingsaman, was one of the righteous sections. Tian Chanzi was naturally a member of the righteous path, and naturally thought of this countermeasure. However, everyone knew that the righteous path had been expelled to the sky beyond heaven, so where could they find the righteous path? Tian Chanzi turned his head and looked at Tang Jing with a burning gaze and asked, "Heaven and Earth Shen Stone, how many have you collected?" Tang Jing's head moved and said, "You want to rebuild the heaven stairway?" Tian Chanzi did not deny it and said, "This is the only way." Tang Jing's expression became serious. He couldn't help but think of Yan Qingyi's prophecy about the end of the world. The stairway to heaven was mentioned in the prophecy. In that scene, the stairway to heaven had been successfully rebuilt. Tian Chanzi suggested to rebuild heavenly chess. Could it be that the prophecy was going to come true? Tang Jing subconsciously rejected the idea of reforging the stairway to heaven. No, the sky beyond heaven is definitely not a paradise. Otherwise, the devil race would not have gone through so much trouble to come back to this world. If we reconstruct the stairway to heaven and connect it to the sky beyond heaven, what if something goes wrong? Tang Jing raised his concerns. Tian Chanzi disagreed and said, "We can't guess the demon race's thoughts. As for the dangers of the sky beyond heaven, there is also a righteous path. As long as we take back the righteous path, then destroy the stairway to heaven. This way we can fight back against the demons and prevent this world from falling into the hands of the demons." Tang Jing obviously understood that this was a method, but he still subconsciously resisted this point and chose to remain silent. Tian Chanzi asked, "Tang Jing, when you were collecting heaven and earth black stones, there were a total of 99 heaven and earth black stones. Did you collect them all?" Hearing about heaven and earth black stones, Tang Jing's eyes flashed with a bright light and said, "Who said it has to be the righteous path? I have a way to deal with the demons." "What way?" Everyone was very curious and looked at him without blinking. "Release the 5-clawed golden dragon," Tang Jing said in a powerful voice. This sentence gave everyone a fright. Many people's faces changed and many more people revealed doubtful expressions. One of them was Princess Anne. She did not know that there was a dragon in the imperial city. Absolutely not. The 5-clawed golden dragon is not a small matter. This is a divine beast. If it goes out of control, it will cause more harm than the demons. The mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens said thoughtfully, "That's one way." During the Battle of the Imperial City, she, Tang Zheng, and the 100 Transformation Star Lord had personally witnessed Tang Zheng's actions of suppressing the 5-clawed golden dragon, leaving a deep impression on her. When the others saw that Empyrean Fairy supported Tang Zheng, their expressions were different. Fang Shishir said, Tang Zheng definitely has his reasons for making this decision. Yi Dingdang Wu and Lu Qingmei nodded at the same time. In the hearts of these women, of course they unconditionally believed in Tang Zheng. The others were hesitant. Tang Zheng glanced at Empyrean Fairy and said, although the 5-clawed golden dragon is a divine beast and is extraordinary, I can control it and make it not dare to stir up trouble. This way we can resist the demons. Will it listen to your orders? Lan Yu asked worriedly. As a mother, she was most worried about her son's safety. Tang Zheng smiled and said, this is not up to it. The 5-clawed golden dragon's brain had his soul imprint. Even if it wanted to resist, it could not. Moreover, the 5-clawed golden dragon still needed him to escape, so it was even more impossible for it to go against Tang Zheng's wishes. In addition, there were still heaven and earth profound stones buried under the Imperial City. Once he released the 5-clawed golden dragon, he could naturally take out the heaven and earth profound stones. The other heaven and earth profound stones were buried around the Tree of Life. Then he would have all 99 heaven and earth profound stones. Even if he really wanted to reforge the stairway to heaven, he could do it. Of course, reforging the heavenly chest was a last resort. He would not make this decision until the very last moment. You can rest assured. Although the 5-clawed golden dragon is powerful, it must listen to Tang Zheng. Empyrean Fairy testified for Tang Zheng. Tian Chanzi looked left at Tang Zheng, right at Empyrean Fairy, and resentfully said, since that is the case, then we can give it a try. The others pondered for a while and nodded in agreement. Tang Zheng, do you need me to do anything? I can ask my father Emperor for help. And suddenly said, not at the moment. How are your jewels coming along? Tang Zheng casually asked. Anne's face lit up with joy and said, we have already held a small-scale auction and sold for a high price. Later on we will hold a large-scale jewelry exhibition and auction. It will definitely sell for an even higher price. What do you want to do with this money? To be honest, when Tang Zheng handed over so many jewels to Anne without saying anything, Anne was also a bit overwhelmed. Even if she was a princess and had seen countless treasures, she was still shocked by the actions of a tycoon like Tang Zheng. She was ecstatic not because of the jewels but because of Tang Zheng's trust. Therefore she worked very hard to sell these jewels, hoping to sell them for a good price. You can discuss the money with Director Mu. Tang Zheng said indifferently. He didn't intervene in business matters. So much money was of no use to him. Of course he had to hand it over to Mu Hongyan to manage. And nodded, indicating that she understood. Everyone try not to go out during this time. With the protection of the Great Array, our safety can be guaranteed for the time being. But without the Great Array, it won't be so easy. Linger, you also stay here. You have worked hard for a long time to hold the concert. Now just treat it as a vacation. Tang Zheng said. If it weren't for everyone's safety, it would be impossible for him to call everyone back. Should we inform the government about this news? Lan Yu asked. Previously, the government sent people to take me away for investigation. I have already instructed them, so they will naturally investigate. Tang Zheng said. If this news is spread, it will definitely cause panic in society. I don't know what kind of chaos the world will become. Tang Zheng sighed. This is an unavoidable problem. The return of the demon race and the destruction of the island nation. This is something that cannot be hidden from the public. Even if the government deliberately hides it and builds a wall to deceive the public, this is only a temporary method. The public will eventually know the truth. If society is in chaos, it will not be good for the public. Hearing this, everyone's mood became more and more depressed. At the same time, there was a picture in front of the chief. This was the satellite image taken by the Near-Earth satellite. It was the image when the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array was activated. Black clouds covered the sky and a huge black hole appeared in the dark clouds. A group of people appeared out of thin air and then descended. After the black clouds dissipated, the ground was a mess. It was as if a typhoon had passed through. It was dead silent. Among the ruins, many broken limbs could be faintly seen. Blood flowed like a river. It was like hell on earth. Other than the demon race that had descended, there was no one else. The hundreds of millions of citizens of the island nation had disappeared. Even though they were only looking at the photo, a gust of cold air could be felt through the photo, making them shudder. The chief shuddered and shook his head. He reprimanded, "The demon race has descended. The island nation has been destroyed. Why didn't you have any information beforehand? Chief, please calm down. We also don't know who activated the Mountain River blood sacrifice array. Moreover, this array is more powerful than before. No one would have thought that someone would use an entire country as the price in exchange for the return of the demon race. The subordinate answered submissively. He tried his best to suppress the trembling in his voice. Then who activated the Mountain River blood sacrifice array? The chief took a deep breath, but he was still unable to suppress his anger. From the picture, it was clear that the return of the demon race's army would be a huge test and crisis for the government. No matter how resourceful and confident the chief was, he couldn't help but feel uneasy and guilty. He was becoming more and more aware of the power of cultivators. The subordinate almost buried his head in his knees. He answered in fear, "We also don't know." At that time there was only Tang Jing, the emperor, and the Hundred Faces Star Lord. However, according to our previous experience, the Hundred Faces Star Lord had activated the Mountain River blood sacrifice array once. This time it might have been his doing. The satellite images were taken intermittently. They could only see the general sequence of events. The specific details couldn't be seen clearly. The chief's eyes flashed. He retorted, "You didn't see it with your own eyes. How do you know it must be him?" The subordinate was stunned. He couldn't understand the chief's thoughts. He stared at him blankly, not knowing what to do. The chief's finger moved around the picture. Suddenly it stopped on Tang Jing. He said thoughtfully, "Can't it be him?" Tang Jing? The subordinate was stunned. He was really shocked by this sentence. Didn't Tang Jing always oppose the Mountain River blood sacrifice array? Why would he go to Japan to activate the array formation? Why would he do something so out of character? Of course he didn't ask this question. He wasn't stupid. He immediately understood the chief's thoughts. Chapter 11:23. The subordinate understood and looked at the bureau chief in awe. He couldn't help but feel pity for Tang Jing. There were probably not many people in the world who were more wrong than him in this unexpected calamity. Is an element of. He could foresee what awaited Tang Jing next. The other countries and forces will definitely know about this news. If you spread it out like this, the remnants of the island nation will definitely seek revenge on him, the bureau chief said coldly. Yes, bureau chief. The subordinate accepted the order and left. A cold light flashed in the bureau chief's eyes. He was filled with murderous intent as he muttered to himself, "Tang Jing, you only have yourself to blame. Who asked you to go against me time and time again?" Clap clap. A round of applause suddenly sounded. The bureau chief was so scared that his whole body trembled. He bounced up from the chair as if he had been electrocuted and exclaimed, "Who is it?" He turned his head abruptly and saw a person standing behind him. Ji Wuxiang. The bureau chief's pupils constricted as he stared straight at the other party. His expression became very stern. "You still dare to come here?" Suddenly, the bureau chief realized something and exclaimed, "How did you get in?" This was an impenetrable fortress with tight security. Not to mention the rumor that Ji Wuxiang didn't know any martial arts. Even if he was an expert, it would be extremely difficult for him to appear behind him without a sound. This was definitely a major mistake in the security system. Ji Wuxiang looked at him with a smile and said, "Haven't you been looking for me? Aren't I here now?" Bureau chief, you really have good methods. Without shedding any blood, with just a few simple words, you have made Tang Jing the public enemy. I admire you, I admire you. Although he said that, there was a hint of mockery in his words, which made the bureau chief very angry. He couldn't help but scold him furiously, "Don't talk nonsense. This matter was originally done by Tang Jing. How can I accuse him unjustly?" "Since you say it's not unjustly, then it's not." Ji Wuxiang shrugged and didn't intend to dwell on this matter. "How did you get in?" The bureau chief asked again, unwilling to give up. "Although your place is heavily guarded, like an iron bastion, and may be effective against others, for me, it is as easy as walking on flat ground," Ji Wuxiang said confidently. The bureau chief furrowed his brows. He was enraged by this provocation. "Your backer has already fallen and you still dare to come here. Looks like you're not as smart as the rumors say. You also have a stupid side," the bureau chief said sarcastically in disdain. Ji Wuxiang was unmoved and said, "You're not qualified to judge whether I'm smart or not. As for my backer, let me tell you, I don't need to rely on him anymore." "What right do you have to say that? Without a backer you're nothing," the bureau chief mocked. Ji Wuxiang put on a fake smile and said, "That's not necessarily true. When have you ever seen a great lord need a backer? He himself is the backer. Ah, you dare to compare yourself to the Azure Dragon Hall Great Lord? Ji Wuxiang was unmoved and sighed, saying, looks like you really don't understand the current situation. You've been looking for the Great Lord's whereabouts, haven't you? The bureau chief's eyelids twitched and he asked, you know where he is? The bureau chief was very curious about the Great Lord's whereabouts. After they parted, the Great Lord seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. There was no trace of him. Ah, of course I know. I'm afraid no one in this world knows the answer to this question better than me. Ji Wuxiang laughed loudly. You're that close to the Great Lord? The bureau chief was shocked. Of course, because I am the Great Lord. Ji Wuxiang's gaze turned cold as he stared straight at the bureau chief and said firmly, what? The bureau chief was stunned. He looked at Ji Wuxiang from head to toe as if he wanted to see the similarities between him and the Great Lord. But after looking for a long time, he still didn't think that Ji Wuxiang was the Great Lord. The bureau chief mocked, haha, you're really delusional. Do you think you can fool my mother with this kind of question? Why would I lie to you? Ji Wuxiang shook his head and said emotionally, I'm here to find you to cooperate. What qualifications do you have to cooperate with me? The bureau chief said disdainfully and suddenly pressed the alarm beside him. Woo woo woo. The alarm went off and the door was suddenly pushed open. A few palace experts rushed in. When they saw Ji Wuxiang in the room, they were all shocked. They acted as if they were facing a great enemy and attacked him without saying anything. Ji Wuxiang didn't even turn his head. He didn't even need to look with his eyes. His finger lightly tapped the air a few times. Bang bang bang, a few palace experts were thrown out one after another. They fell to the ground pathetically and couldn't get up again. The bureau chief looked at Ji Wuxiang as if he had seen a ghost and said, how are you so powerful? Ji Wuxiang casually sat on the chair and looked straight at the bureau chief. He asked in return, why can't I be so powerful? Didn't I already tell you just now? I am the Great Lord. The bureau chief's expression kept changing. He didn't believe this at first and thought it was nonsense. But after seeing his actions just now, he was more and more convinced that he was the Great Lord. This change was very strange and made the bureau chief feel a little uneasy. This was a question he had never thought about before. Back then, when Ji Wuxiang fought with Tang Jing, he even used a jura. Because of the celestial chess, the chess club was cut off from the outside world. So, no one knew about Ji Wuxiang's true identity. Even the bureau chief was no exception. Ji Wuxiang looked deeply at the bureau chief, as if he had seen through his thoughts. He said, since you already believe this, then we can continue our discussion. What do you want? The bureau chief's expression kept changing as he asked. Didn't I tell you before? Cooperation. Ji Wuxiang said lightly. Cooperation in what way? The bureau chief's vigilance towards Ji Wuxiang had reached an unprecedented level. Ji Wuxiang had hidden it so deeply. He must have a plan. And coming to find him at this time, it probably wasn't anything good. Ji Wuxiang didn't care about the bureau chief's thoughts and said, you already know about the return of the Devil Clan. Next, if we cooperate, we can ensure that this country will be safe from disaster. The bureau chief's heart moved. He didn't have a good idea about the return of the Devil Clan. Since Ji Wuxiang came knocking on his door, why not listen to his idea? What idea do you have? I've created a celestial chess. This celestial chess is equivalent to a defensive array. It can protect this country from the attack of the Devil Clan. Ji Wuxiang said solemnly. The bureau chief snorted. Don't think that I don't know about arrays. What array can protect a country? Our country is so big, what kind of array formation could be so powerful? Ji Wuxiang said confidently, other arrays can't. But my celestial chess is worlds apart from arrays. You can only understand it as an array. In short, you have no other choice but to cooperate with me. My celestial chess can protect you. Otherwise, the island nation will be your lesson. The bureau chief's eyelids twitched. Don't scare me. The Great Wuxia isn't something that an island nation can compare to. With the return of the Devil Clan, do you think there's any difference between an island nation and Wuxia? Ji Wuxiang, the Devil Clan was expelled from this world by you martial artists. Even if they return, they will first find you martial artists for revenge. Especially your Azure Dragon Palace, which is the direct line of New Era. Tell me, if the Devil Clan knows about this, will they come to deal with me or deal with you first? The bureau chief didn't give up and retorted with certainty. Ji Wuxiang wasn't afraid. The Azure Dragon Palace was left behind by New Era. But do you think that the Devil Clan is so benevolent? This time, with their return without the suppression of the righteous path, Won't they get involved in this great country? You're thinking too simply. The bureau chief's heart skipped a beat. He had to admit that Ji Wuxiang had hit the nail on the head. What he was most afraid of was that the Devil Clan would target the authorities. That would make them anxious. The bureau chief's expression flickered. He glanced at Ji Wuxiang and said, "There's no free lunch in this world. You said that the heavenly chest can protect Huaxia. What's in it for you? Also, you can't be doing this for free, right?" Ji Wuxiang smiled and said, "The bureau chief is a smart person. Of course I have conditions." "What conditions?" "The heavenly chest is not perfect yet. I need you to help me perfect it." The bureau chief was stunned for a moment, then laughed out loud. "I thought that the heavenly chest was very powerful. So it's not complete at all. That's just your imagination." "I'm not lying at all. It's just that the heavenly chest is not perfect. As long as you help me, in the future Huaxia will be a country that no one can attack. The other countries can only bow down to you. The ceremony of all nations, you don't want this kind of prosperous era, right?" Ceremony of all nations. This sentence undoubtedly hit the bureau chief's soft spot. As a person in power, what was his greatest wish? To leave his name in history and be passed down through the ages. If Huaxia could really recreate the prosperous era of the ancient ceremony of all nations, then he would definitely be able to achieve his wish. The bureau chief hesitated for a long time before asking, "Then how can I perfect the heavenly chess?" "The heavenly chess needs the power of the stars to be completely perfect. I can activate the heavenly chess and make the power of the stars descend. However, this speed is too slow, so I need enough people to practice the heavenly chess. From there, I need enough people to practice the heavenly chess in the shortest time possible so that the heavenly chess can absorb enough power of the stars. Then I will succeed and achieve the goal of protecting the whole of Huaxia," Ji Wuxiang said. "What can I help you with?" "People." Ji Wuxiang stretched out a finger. "I need 100,000 people to practice the heavenly chess." "So many people?" "Yes, and these 100,000 people must be well trained and listen to orders. In this world only soldiers can do this. So I need you to give the order to gather 100,000 well-trained elite soldiers to help me." This was the idea that Ji Wuxiang came up with after thinking hard for a long time. Tang Jing couldn't help him perfect the heavenly chess. In fact, he even lost a few of the chess players that he had painstakingly trained for many years. It was very difficult for him to perfect the heavenly chess. Chapter 11:24. The bureau chief looked at Ji Wuxiang in shock. He didn't expect him to be so whimsical as to have designs on the military. Pinnacle novel. Ji Wuxiang looked at the bureau chief meaningfully. He believed that the other party couldn't reject his condition, because the bureau chief had no other choice. Finally, the bureau chief pondered for a long time, then said, "Okay, I promise you, but I must control heavenly chess." Ji Wuxiang didn't mind at all. "I asked you to send people to practice heavenly chess. I don't have any intention of keeping it to myself. In the future we will need heavenly chess to protect this huge country. You should naturally control it." The bureau chief stared at Ji Wuxiang. He didn't completely believe him. But since Ji Wuxiang needed his help, then naturally he couldn't completely guarantee the secret. Once he gave the order, there would naturally be people who would discover the secret of heavenly chess. Even if Ji Wuxiang had ulterior motives, the bureau chief wasn't afraid at all. Ji Wuxiang sneered in his heart. He had long seen through the bureau chief's thoughts. He thought disdainfully, if the secret of heavenly chess could be discovered so easily, then why would I spend so many years researching it? Both of them had their own thoughts. They could be considered to have reached a preliminary cooperation. "How are you going to deal with Tang Jing?" Before leaving, Ji Wuxiang asked curiously. The bureau chief sneered and said, "After the truth is announced, the world will naturally have a judgment of him. As for what the world will do, that's not something I can control. Why would I need to interfere? Borrowing someone else's knife to kill." Ji Wuxiang sneered in his heart, but didn't say it out loud. He didn't believe that Tang Jing would be defeated so easily, but as long as Tang Jing's energy was restrained, then he would have enough time to perfect heavenly chess. Actually, Ji Wuxiang wasn't in such a hurry to perfect heavenly chess, but 100 Change Star Lord activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array and summoned the demons back, disrupting his steps. He had no choice but to bring it forward. 100 Change Star Lord, this troublemaker, colluded with the demons. I'm afraid he will be even more arrogant. Ji Wuxiang did not know that the 100 Change Star Sovereign had already escaped from the demon race, and that the person in charge of the demon race was Qiyu. Huaxia wasn't the only country that noticed the changes in the island nation through satellite surveillance. Other countries also noticed it one after another. Shocking photos were released one after another. In addition, the day before, Tang Zheng had kidnapped Emperor Hirohito in front of everyone. Immediately, all the spearheads were pointed at Tang Zheng, believing that he was the culprit behind the destruction of the island nation. His name immediately resounded throughout the world, but it was not a good reputation but a notorious one. He was like a rat crossing the street and everyone wanted to beat him. Many countries issued harsh condemnations one after another. Among them, the Atlantic Empire's words were particularly sharp, directly classifying Tang Zheng as the public enemy of humanity, the biggest leader of the terrorist group that was eliminated a few years ago. Wuxia was also unwilling to be left behind. She strongly condemned and cut ties with Tang Zheng, indicating that Wuxia had nothing to do with this matter. Of course, there were exceptions. Sweden chose to remain silent. However, the King of Sweden immediately called to ask about the whole story. Seeing that Sweden did not add insult to injury, Tang Zheng did not hide anything. He roughly explained what had happened in the island nation and the dangerous situation in front of them. No matter how turbulent the situation outside was, Tang Zheng did not take it to heart at all, as if he had nothing to do with it. However, other people were indignant and wanted to seek justice for him. Someone must have fanned the flames and deliberately poured dirty water on you. We can't just let it go. Fang Shishir was kind-hearted, but she was also angered by this matter. If other people were targeting him, she could choose to turn a blind eye, but the other party was targeting her beloved. She couldn't stand it. Yi Dingdang had a fiery temper and hated evil. She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth in hatred. If the tiger doesn't show its power, do you think we're sick cats? This matter couldn't be clearer. Who has the power to announce this news to the world? Everyone is well aware of this. Chief. This answer popped up in everyone's minds at the same time. It was no secret that Tang Zheng and the chief did not get along. They were just at peace for the time being. Moreover, he had sent people to try to take him away. These people were rejected and must have held a grudge, so they deliberately poured dirty water on him. What a ruthless move. Everyone had the same thought in their minds. They were furious and wanted nothing more than to rush into the courtyard house with high walls and confront him face to face. They wanted to explain everything clearly. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, was the quietest and did not mind. He lightly looked at the crowd and advised, "Everyone, don't be so agitated. Their mouths are on their bodies. Let them say what they want. It's not like I will lose a piece of meat. This is a matter of reputation. Moreover, this crime is too serious. It's simply against humanity. How can we sit back and do nothing?" Tang Zheng faintly smiled and said, "Since he used this kind of despicable method of pointing at a deer as a horse, it means that he has reached the end of his rope, so we can be at ease." Even though everyone admitted that Tang Zheng's words made sense, they still couldn't swallow their anger. Lan Yu stood up and said, "I'll go settle the score with him. He dares to slander my son. I think he doesn't want to live anymore." In the eyes of a mother, no matter how great her authority was, it was still zero. How could she possibly be afraid? Wu Junshan gave Tang Zheng a deep look but did not say anything. Tang Zheng wanted to persuade him again, but he saw someone push open the door and walk in. Why are you guys here?" The people who came were Yen Potion's family and Qin Badian. Their expressions were extremely serious, as if the sky was about to collapse. Looking at the crowd sitting in a circle, their expressions became even more serious. "Young Master Tang, did you hear the rumors outside? What exactly is going on?" Yen Padian asked impatiently. "Sit down first, we'll tell you slowly." Tang Zheng pointed to the sofa and said calmly. The few of them looked at him curiously and solemnly. They sat down and listened to Tang Zheng's tireless explanation of the situation. The few of them were shocked, and Yen Padian immediately jumped up from the sofa. "You said the demon clan has returned?" Tang Zheng nodded. 100 Transformation Star Lord summoned back the demon clan. Yen Padian sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "This person is really a madman. Isn't it like the rumors say that you destroyed the island nation? Am I that crazy?" Tang Zheng laughed bitterly. The few of them subconsciously shook their heads. "Who is so vicious to actually make you take this blame?" "Chief." Yi Dingdang could not wait and blurted out. The few of them looked at each other. "Don't worry, this is a sign that you're at your wit's end," Tang Zheng said. "Young Master Tang, you are magnanimous, you can ignore it, but this is a big matter, you have no choice but to come up with a plan. Otherwise, after your reputation is ruined, the impact on you will be too bad." Yen Padian said earnestly. "Yes, we can't remain silent." Qin Badian nodded. Tang Zheng was a great benefactor to him, and seeing that his benefactor had been framed, he was also holding back a wave of anger in his heart. Everyone, you really don't need to care about this. The most important thing right now is to deal with the demon clan. You must be careful when you return. If there are any abnormalities, tell me immediately. You must not use force. Tang Jing warned. The few of them nodded in agreement with different expressions. Yan Qingyi took a step forward, looked at Tang Jing with a burning gaze and said, I prophesied a new scene. Hearing this, everyone was shocked and looked at her. Everyone knew that Yan Qingyi's prophecy technique was extremely profound. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Yan Qingyi looked at Tang Jing with a puzzled expression and said, the scene of the prophecy this time is extremely strange. It is a great battle between two camps, the heavens and the earth and sky are turned upside down. It is extremely tragic. A battle between two camps? Tang Jing was slightly startled. Are we among them? Yan Qingyi thought for a while, then shook his head and said, I didn't see you guys this time, but I am sure that it is still our world. These two groups of people are obviously cultivators, and their fighting strength is extremely strong. Everyone looked at each other, feeling extremely puzzled. Do you know anyone among them? Tang Jing narrowed his eyes and asked. Yes. Yan Qingyi said in an earth-shattering manner. Oh. Yi Meiyu. What? Everyone was shocked as if they had seen a ghost. They all widened their eyes and looked at each other in dismay. No matter what, they never thought that it would be this answer. Tang Jing was surprised, but he fell into deep thought. Yi Meiyu was no longer the same as before. She had already absorbed the power of the incubus and could be considered an expert. What did it mean for her to participate in this battle? He shook his head fiercely, unable to figure out the reason behind it. Did you really see it clearly? Yan Padian could not help but ask. He knew a little about Yi Meiyu. Moreover, the results of his investigation a while ago showed that Yi Meiyu was completely different from usual. Although Tang Jing did not explain why later on, he also realized that Yi Meiyu was different. This time, her figure actually appeared in the prophecy, which was even more intriguing. He couldn't help but look at Tang Jing curiously, guessing that perhaps Tang Jing knew the answer. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Tang Jing asked Yan Qingyi, have you seen another person, Lu Wuxin? Yan Qingyi frowned suspiciously. Hearing Tang Jing describe Lu Wuxin's appearance bit by bit, Yan Qingyi closed her eyes and recalled that scene. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and said, there's her. Who is Lu Wuxin? Tian Chanzi could not help but ask curiously. Back then, Tang Jing did not tell everyone about Yi Meiyu and Lu Wuxin because this was related to Qiyu. Qiyu was the big secret hidden in his body, so he did not easily show it to others. Lu Wuxin was a female general under the Yellow Emperor in the ancient era. She had a brilliant battle record. Empyrean Fairy spoke first. Empyrean Fairy had a high temperament and knew a lot about the strong women in history. Of course, she misunderstood and missed the female general under the Yellow Emperor in the ancient era. A female general under the Yellow Emperor? Everyone was shocked. They never thought that this matter would actually involve someone from the ancient era. Other than the 100 Transformation Star Lord, why would someone from the ancient era appear? That's right, it's already been over 10,000 years. Why isn't he dead yet? Chapter 1125. It's a long story. Lu Wuxin didn't live for more than 10,000 years, but her soul was imprisoned in the desolate heavenly tomb back then. Later on, when the restrictions of the desolate heavenly tomb were broken, her soul escaped. Later on, she found someone to possess and reincarnate, reappearing in the world. The Pinnacle Novel. Tang Jing explained. Tian Chanzi raised his eyebrows and suddenly realized, so that's how it is. Could it be that many of the things that escaped back then are going to appear? Perhaps. Since the first one has appeared, then there must be a second one. I have already ordered everyone to gather all the relevant information. I believe there will be a result soon. What's going on with Yi Meiyu? Yi Dingdang asked curiously. Tang Jing explained the cause and effect once again, causing everyone to sigh. Yi Xuanji has always used Yi Ku, but now it seems that Yi Meiyu has reached a higher level, and the Ye family situation will definitely change. Yi Meiyu is even more unreasonable than Yi Ku. The key is that there is still Lu Wuxin, so we have to be careful of the Ye family. Tang Jing warned. Yan Padian and Qin Badian nodded at the same time. Then what does my prophecy mean? Is there really going to be a great battle? Yan Qingyi asked. Since Lu Wuxin is fighting with the other side, then do you remember that there is such a person in the other camp? Tang Jing still remembered the Saint King of the Demon Clan, and described his appearance. Yan Qingyi was wild with joy. Yes, there's him. Tang Zheng's head trembled, and his expression changed slightly. Empyrean Fairy had an idea and asked curiously, could it be that this person is from the demon clan? Since Lu Wuxin was fighting with others, then who else in this world could make Lu Wuxin hate them so much? Could only be the demon clan. After all, the demon clan had evolved from the Ninely clan. Demon clan, is that true? The others asked one after another. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh and said, in the ancient times there was an earth-shattering battle, the Battle of Zhuolu. Qiyu was defeated and the Yellow Emperor was victorious. Thus, Huaxia's orthodox inheritance was established. Now that tens of thousands of years have passed, could it be that the two sides are going to fight again? The meaning of this sentence was clear enough. The other camp was undoubtedly the demon race. Could it be that this enmity that had existed for tens of thousands of years was going to be settled in the future? If that's really the case, then Lu Wuxin must have gathered his old subordinates, because many of the souls that escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb were Yellow Emperor's subordinates. Empyrean Fairy said with certainty. No one retorted. It was obvious that they believed this judgment. If Lu Wuxin were to gather his former subordinates to fight against the demons, wouldn't my previous precautions be unnecessary? Tang Zheng thought to himself. He originally wanted to collect information on the anomalies in various places and then capture all of these souls in one fell swoop to prevent them from harming the common people. Now that the devil race had returned, these souls had become a force against the devil race after their rebirth. Lu Wuxin will definitely have a way to gather these old subordinates. I just don't know what method he will use. Seeing that Tang Zheng was silent, everyone looked at him at the same time and asked, then what should we do? Tang Zheng raised his head, looked at everyone and said, everyone, don't worry, since these two forces are going to fight, the Sandpiper and Clam will fight, and the fisherman will reap the benefits, which is better than we expected. Seeing that Tang Zheng was so confident, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone disperse. Just pay more attention during this period of time. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said. Everyone dispersed, and Tang Zheng also left his home alone, heading towards the imperial city. Since he had decided to release the 5-clawed golden dragon, moreover, he had promised it that he would release it once his cultivation reached the semi-god stage. Now it was time to fulfill his promise. However, he did not know that the two people at home were whispering to each other. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu revealed unconcealable anger between their brows. Lan Yu said in a low voice, our son has suffered such a great injustice, we can't just let it go like this. She was eager to protect her son, not to mention the fact that she owed Tang Zheng too much since he was a child. She could not tolerate her son being wronged like this. Wu Junshan's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Let's go find the person behind this. Lan Yu looked at her husband with admiration and said decisively, yes, let's go meet that leader. Wu Junshan nodded without hesitation. As the former head of the martial arts sect, he did not have much respect for the secular world's nobles, not to mention offending his son. If this could be tolerated, what else could be tolerated? The two of them hit it off and quietly left the villa, heading straight to the vicinity of the courtyard. In broad daylight, the courtyard house was heavily guarded, and not even a fly could get in. The two of them looked at each other. Then, with a tacit understanding in their hearts, they tiptoed and quietly came to the corner of the wall like a bird. Whoosh whoosh. With a leap, they tried to climb over the courtyard wall, but while they were still in the air, they heard an angry roar. Who is it? Whoosh. A strong wind blew over, incomparably domineering. The two of them tapped their toes on the courtyard wall and soared into the sky, dodging the attack, and then landed steadily in the courtyard house. Hearing this angry roar, the courtyard house was filled with noisy footsteps. Many guards rushed over like lightning from all directions. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They were not afraid of the guards but were shocked by the attack just now. If the two of them had been careless, they definitely would not have been able to dodge that attack. From this point, it could be seen how profound this person's cultivation was. Since when was there such a powerful person in the inner palace? Number 1, a martial king expert, was already dead, so who could be their match? The crowd parted and two people walked over. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu's pupils shrank, revealing a puzzled expression as they stared at the two people. That was because they had already recognized one of them, Yi Meiyu. At the same time, another name appeared in their minds. Lu Wuxin. Although they had never seen Lu Wuxin before, they had heard Tang Zheng describe him to Yan Qingyi, so they had a deep impression of him. That was because Lu Wuxin's appearance was too unique, and people could recognize him at a glance. Yi Meiyu, Lu Wuxin. You actually know us? Lu Wuxin looked at the two of them in surprise. After all, Yi Meiyu was a member of the Ye family. She had seen the photos of Wu Junshan and Lan Yu, so she immediately recognized them and said, "Senior, these two people are the original sect master of the martial sect, Wu Junshan, and his wife Lan Yu. They are Tang Zheng's biological parents." Tang Zheng's parents? A cold light flashed in Lu Wuxin's eyes. She had a deep impression of Tang Zheng. He chased them until they fled in a sorry state. This was a great humiliation. How could she forget it? Now that she saw his parents, could it be that it was heaven's will that she could take revenge? Lu Wuxin approached the two of them step by step. Her face was filled with bone-chilling hatred and said coldly, "Your son provoked me and the father has to pay for the child's debt. Then I'll start with you and let him know the consequences of provoking me. If it's not that easy to kill us." Wu Junshan stepped forward and directly attacked Lu Wuxin. He drew 9 large circles with his hands, which continuously surged toward Lu Wuxin. Wu Junshan directly used his yin-yang harmony art, his signature move. A light flashed in Lu Wuxin's hand and the heartless willow appeared in her palm. The willow leaves danced and a green light flew out, hitting the 9 circles. Bang bang, a series of collision sounds rang out as the circles shattered one after another. Only when the last one was left did the green light's attack come to an abrupt end. However, Wu Junshan's attack also disappeared without a trace, completely disintegrating. A simple move had determined the winner between the two sides. Wu Junshan was shocked. He was a martial king, but he was at a disadvantage in front of the opponent. There was no doubt about the result of this battle. Another question popped up in his mind. Why were there Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu in the inner palace? Could it be that they had colluded with the chief? This was a new piece of news that he had to inform Tang Zheng. Otherwise, there would definitely be a misjudgment and it would be too late for regrets. The husband and wife were of the same mind. Lan Yu also instantly thought of this question. She also stepped forward without hesitation. Her cultivation was not inferior to Wu Junshan's. Once she used the broken yang finger, one finger could split yin and yang. The chi of heaven and earth seemed to be split into 2 by that slender finger. The other guards felt a soul-stirring aura, and all of them sucked in a breath of cold air. They were overwhelmed with shock. If not for Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu coincidentally coming here, they would not have been able to stop Wu Junshan and Lan Yu. At the entrance of the study not far away, the chief stood behind the layers of guards. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the battle, his thick eyebrows almost forming a crescent moon. He gritted his teeth and muttered to himself, "Tang Zheng has gone too far. Last time he trespassed here and now he called someone over. He must have guessed that I was the one who leaked the news, so he came to denounce me. I am the dignified chief, how can I allow you to order me around?" At the same time he also felt a lingering fear and rejoiced. This time, Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu were summoned because of the results of the investigation. Lu Wuxin cooperated with the chief and asked the chief to investigate the abnormal events in various places. Now that there were finally clues, the chief informed them. Before they even entered the study, Lu Wuxin had already heard the commotion, so he didn't hesitate to step out to stop them. Now, not only was the chief working with Lu Wuxin, he was also working with Ji Wuxiang. He was truly not an ordinary person. The chief could not help but rejoice. Fortunately, he had agreed to cooperate with Lu Wuxin. Otherwise, without his help, he would have encountered Wu Junshan and Lan Yu. At the thought of this, he was enraged. This time, he had found the information Lu Wuxin wanted, so she had to fulfill her promise and make him stronger in the shortest time possible. That way he would not be easily bullied by others. At that time, anyone who dared to provoke him would end up in a miserable state. Chapter 11:26. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu were of one mind and attacked Lu Wuxin together. Lu Wuxin's situation immediately changed. Lu Wuxin's eyes turned cold as he stared at the two and said, "You can come at me together. I'll deal with you in one go." Whoosh. The heartless willow gently waved and 2 green lights shot toward the two. The oppressive aura made the two unable to breathe. However, the two didn't flinch at all. Wu Junshan performed the yin-yang harmony art and drew a circle with his big hand. Endless power gushed out from the circle and greeted the 2 green lights with an earth-shattering force. At the same time, Lan Yu also launched an attack with the yin-yang split finger. Bang! Bang! 2 loud noises were heard as the 2 green lights collapsed. However, the yin-yang harmony art and the yang split fingers attack didn't completely weaken and still rushed toward Lu Wuxin. Lu Wuxin's eyes flashed with surprise as he clicked his tongue and said, "Amazing! You can actually dissolve my attack. But so what? You're doomed to fail. As soon as his voice fell, the heartless willow rapidly grew as if a giant snake had grown a tail and quickly rolled toward the two. Whoosh! The long willow branch suddenly danced and broke the two's attack. Then it lashed out like a whip and fiercely attacked the two. The two watched as the willow branch got closer and closer and rapidly enlarged in their eyes. They tried to dodge but found that the willow branch had locked onto all directions. No matter how they dodged, they couldn't escape the willow branch's attack. Since that was the case, they could only fight back. The yin-yang harmony art and the yang split finger were performed again. However, with a muffled sound, the two were sent flying and smashed into a big tree before they stopped. The two got up from the ground in a sorry state with blood hanging from the corner of their mouths. They looked at Lu Wuxin in horror. One could imagine the combat strength of the two when they joined hands. They didn't expect that they would be defeated so quickly. The opponent's cultivation was really shocking. Yimeyu looked at the two proudly. She wasn't surprised by the result and sneered, "Wu Junshan Lanyu, now you know how powerful Senior is, right? And all of this was caused by your obedient son Tang Zheng. You can only blame yourselves." Lanyu fiercely glared back at Yimeyu and said, "Yimeyu, don't be complacent. Even if we really die, that Tang Zheng will take revenge for us. On the contrary, if we die, the curse is torture, we will definitely not have a good ending in the future." Haha, what a joke. Yimeyu laughed maniacally in disdain. "I am not the Yimeyu of the past. My life is up to me to decide. No one else has the qualifications or ability to decide for me. The two of you, on the other hand, are going to be miserable today. You're definitely going to die." Yimeyu's temperament had completely changed, especially after following Lu Wuxin. She was like a completely different person. Announcing that we're dead for sure so quickly, aren't you a little too confident?" Lan Yu sneered and retorted, exchanging glances with Wu Junshan. Whoosh! The two of them leaped and attacked Lu Wuxin. Lu Wuxin rolled his eyes and said in disdain, "Let's see how you guys are going to dodge this time." The heartless willow grew crazily, swaying as it soared into the air. With lightning speed, it neutralized the attacks of the two and then wrapped around them. The two of them turned pale with fright. They tried to resist but found that it was useless. The attack of the heartless willow was simply too powerful. One had to know that the heartless willow was a saint tool, and was definitely not something an ordinary magic treasure could compare to. Against these two unarmed people, the heartless willow had a huge advantage. Moreover, Lu Wuxin's cultivation was higher than the two of them, so his advantage was even more obvious. Seeing that the two of them were trapped, the surrounding guards all clapped and cheered. They looked at Lu Wuxin with eyes filled with shock and horror. Lu Wuxin looked at the two of them with a fake smile and asked, "Now you know the pain, right? But it's too late, you two must die. Don't worry, in the future I will kill Tang Zheng and send him to reunite with your family." "Nonsense, keep dreaming. How can our son be killed by you?" The two of them immediately retorted. "Senior, why are you saying so much useless things to them? To avoid trouble, just kill them directly." Yimeyu's eyes were filled with killing intent as she urged. Lu Wuxin said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'll play with them slowly. It's been a long time since I met such an expert. If I kill them so quickly, wouldn't it be letting them off too easily?" Yimeyu suddenly realized and said, "Senior's words make sense. Let's go, we'll talk to the people inside first." Lu Wuxin was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he swaggered towards the direction of the bureau chief. Along the way, this scene attracted the gazes of many people because this scene was too bizarre. The bureau chief had never truly seen Lu Wuxin's methods. He leaned against the door and watched dumbfoundedly as the few of them walked over like stars surrounding the moon. Especially the two people who were entangled by the willow branch in midair. This made him click his tongue in wonder and feel extremely envious. He thought to himself how good it would be if he had such a powerful magic treasure. The bureau chief tidied up his clothes and greeted them with a serious expression. In the huge courtyard, the two sides met. The bureau chief could not help but look at Wu Junshan and Lan Yu, who were in midair, and said indignantly, "You guys have guts to actually dare to trespass into the inner palace. Are you not afraid of death?" Wu Junshan glared and roared, "You slandered our son and splashed dirty water on him. Don't think that we don't know about this. If not you, who should we look for?" The bureau chief suddenly realized and laughed mockingly, "So you guys actually came for this matter. Tang Zheng's actions are obvious to everyone in the world. He is simply insane. How am I the one who splashed dirty water and slandered him?" Although this matter could not be any more obvious, he still refused to admit it. He would not let others have a reason to criticize him, especially in front of so many people. Lu Wuxin frowned and asked, "What are you guys talking about?" Island Nation was destroyed not long ago. Many news had not been announced to the public, or many people who did not care about current affairs did not know about it. Without a doubt, Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu were such people. Lu Wuxin did notice the strange phenomenon in the Island Nation, but all her thoughts were on the matter of gathering her old subordinates. In addition, she did not know about the Mountain River blood sacrifice array, so naturally she did not think in this direction. The bureau chief did not want to talk about this matter in front of so many people, so he said perfunctorily, "I'll tell you later." Seeing the bureau chief's strange expression, Lu Wuxin fell into deep thought and did not ask further. Kill these two people. They dared to trespass into this place, which is already a capital offense. The bureau chief did not want to give the two more opportunities to talk nonsense, so as to avoid revealing more things that would be detrimental to him, so he directly issued a gag order. Lu Wuxin originally had the intention to kill. Hearing him say this, his killing intent surged. "If that's the case, then I'll send you on your way." Lu Wuxin activated the Heartless Willow, and the willow branches emitted a faint green light, fiercely shrinking inward. The huge force immediately pressed down on the two people, causing their faces to turn red with pain. Yi Meiyu's eyes were incomparably excited as she thought to herself, "Tang Tangjing, you ignored me. Today I'll kill your parents and you'll know how powerful I am." Wu Junshan and Lan Yu looked at each other. Wu Junshan said guiltily, It was all my fault back then. I did not fulfill my duty as a father and husband, and allowed my son to wander outside. I have never dared to ask for your forgiveness. I only hope to be a cow or a horse in my next life to repay you too." Lan Yu's eyes reddened as she emotionally said, "Junshan, I don't blame you anymore. In my lifetime, I've already forgiven you when I saw my son again and saw his achievements today. It's just a pity that we can't continue to accompany our son. I haven't had the chance to hear him call me mother yet. This is the biggest regret of my life. I don't dare ask him to call me father," Wu Junshan said in pain. "Haha, you're still so sentimental even when you're about to die. Don't worry, your son will soon go down to accompany you." Yi Meiyu mocked mercilessly. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu turned their heads to stare at Yi Meiyu at the same time, gritting their teeth as they said, "Yi Meiyu, how could you kill our son? You will definitely avenge us." "Is that so? Then we'll wait and see," Yi Meiyu said proudly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, two sword lights flashed. With two puffing sounds, the willow branches were actually cut off. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu landed on the ground and finally escaped. "Sect Master, you guys hurry up and leave. I'll stop them." A voice sounded, but it was impossible to tell the exact location. Wu Junshan's heart skipped a beat as he guessed that the shadow had made a move. This time, when he came to the capital, the shadow had actually been following him in secret. It was just that he had a set of concealment techniques so outsiders could not detect his existence at all. This time, when he came to the capital to denounce them, the shadow was still by his side. It was just that he was not in a hurry to show himself. Now that the two of them were on the verge of death, the shadow had no choice but to make a move. "Who is it?" Lu Wuxin flew into a rage and roared. His sharp eyes looked around, trying to find out who had made a move. However, after looking around, she still could not find her target. This made her extremely angry as there was actually someone who could hide their tracks right under her nose. The others also looked at each other in dismay. Their gazes wandered around, but they still could not find anything. The chief subconsciously hid in the protective circle of the guards and looked around in fear. This person's attack was so strange, he was afraid that his life would be ended by this ghostly sword edge. Yi Meiyu was not to be outdone and scolded sternly, "Who is pretending to be mysterious? If you have the ability, show yourself." No one responded to Yi Meiyu. Seeing that she was ignored, Yi Meiyu flew into a rage. You go first. I'll stay behind and fight alongside the shadow." Wu Junshan was very clear that if no one stayed behind to restrain the other party, it would be very difficult to escape. He was willing to sacrifice himself in exchange for his wife's safety. Lan Yu was reluctant to part with him and kept shaking his head. "Be good, you have to tell this news to our son. You can't be deceived by this group of people. Your mission is even more difficult," Wu Junshan warned sternly. Chapter 11:27. Lan Yu was a meticulous person. She was also a decisive person. She instantly understood what her husband was thinking. Her husband was willing to sacrifice himself to protect her. She was extremely touched, but she did not reject him like a little woman. She suddenly turned her head, tapped her toes and rushed to the roof. A single tear rolled down her cheek and fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. "Catch her!" Seeing this, the chief shouted. A few people jumped up, wanting to stop her. However, a sword light suddenly flashed, and with a few slashes, a few streaks of blood flew up. A few people fell from the sky and landed hard on the ground, unable to move anymore. The chief was so frightened that he shrank his neck and staggered back. He felt a chill run from his back to the top of his head. This person was too elusive. In the next second he disappeared again as if he had never appeared. If it were not for the few corpses and blood on the ground, no one would believe that he had made a move again. Yimei's eyes were also filled with confusion. Clearly, she did not see clearly how the shadow attacked and then disappeared without a trace. Lu Wuxin's eyes lit up. She seemed to be deep in thought as her gaze wandered through the crowd. Suddenly she laughed and said, "You're quite good at disguising yourself. You're called the shadow, right? In front of me, even if you're just a shadow, I'll make sure you have nowhere to hide and drag you out." Lu Wuxin's figure flashed and rushed into the crowd of guards. Immediately, it was as if a pot had exploded. When the guards saw the fierce Lu Wuxin rushing over, they all turned pale and fled in all directions. The crowd dispersed and a sword light flashed. The shadow finally appeared. The shadow was good at concealing his whereabouts. In fact, he was good at hiding in the shadows of the crowd or other buildings and trees, so that no one could detect him. If he was following someone, even if he was behind them, no matter how vigilant that person was, they would definitely not be able to detect his presence. He was like this person's shadow. Of course, if this person's cultivation was ridiculously high, then there was nothing he could do and he would definitely be detected. Lu Wuxin's cultivation was much higher than his, so even if he used this kind of concealment technique, it was useless. After the crowd scattered and fled, he finally couldn't hide anymore. Seeing the sharp sword light coming towards him, Lu Wuxin revealed a smile in his eyes. Such a petty trick. You may be able to fool others, but how can you fool my eyes?" The sword missed and did not hurt Lu Wuxin at all. Lu Wuxin's attack was like a thunderbolt, arriving in front of the shadow in the blink of an eye. The shadow was wearing a black cloak and its face could not be seen. It was as if it was really a black shadow. Since his first attack had failed, he had already prepared a series of counterattacks. Therefore, when Lu Wuxin's attack arrived, it just so happened to collide with his counterattack. The sword light and the green light lit up at the same time. They were incomparably dazzling as they complemented each other. Seeing this, Wu Junshan silently joined the battle. He was very clear about the shadow's strength. It was slightly inferior to his own, so how could it be a match for Lu Wuxin? The shadow's trump card was to appear and disappear unpredictably. Once his whereabouts were exposed, his attack would be greatly reduced, and he would be even less of a match for Lu Wuxin. Lu Wuxin heard the commotion behind him but was not afraid at all. He activated a spell, and Wuxin's willow grew wildly, circling around the shadow and attacking from behind. Bang! A loud sound came from behind, but it did not affect Lu Wuxin's attack at all. Crack! With a crisp sound, the shadow's sword broke into two. Lu Wuxin reached out and grabbed the shadow's arm. The shadow roared and fought back with all his might. He spun a few times in the air and miraculously escaped. Then he quickly retreated and disappeared into the crowd. Lu Wuxin was multitasking, so his attack was greatly reduced. He blocked Wu Junshan's attack but did not hurt him. Seeing Wu Junshan attack again, Lu Wuxin was furious. He turned around and glared at Wu Junshan. "Go to hell." The branches of the Wuxin willow split into two, then four, and in the blink of an eye, there were hundreds of them. They were like 100 poisonous snakes, attacking Wu Junshan together. Wu Junshan hurriedly circled around, but the yin-yang harmony art could only block a few willow branches. Could not block so many. He was hit by dozens of willow branches, and several bloody holes appeared on his body. Blood flowed out incessantly. Wu Junshan staggered and knelt on one knee. However, he stood up abruptly and gritted his teeth, his expression resolute. Swoosh! Sword light flashed again and the shadow attacked again. Seeing that Wu Junshan's life was at stake, he could not care less about his own safety. Lu Wuxin's lips curled into a cold smile, as if he had already expected this. "You're willing to sacrifice your own life for him. You really are eager to protect your master." Lu Wuxin turned around abruptly and charged at the shadow again. This time, the shadow's attack was even fiercer, almost erupting with his most powerful attack. The broken sword seemed to have been rejuvenated as well, bursting with terrifying sword light that was incomparably sharp. However, this did not pose much of a threat to Lu Wuxin. The willow branches lashed at the shadow's body, and his black clothes were immediately dyed red with blood. A few willow branches pierced through his body, and he hung on the branches like a candied haw. Shadow. Wu Junshan turned pale with fright and screamed hysterically. The shadow had been following him for several decades, almost inseparable from him. It was as if they were truly one person. This time, the shadow did not hesitate to sacrifice his own life for him. One could imagine the pain in Wu Junshan's heart. Tears flickered in his eyes, but he held them back. An intense killing intent surged in his eyes as he stood upright, supporting the heavens with an indomitable spirit. Shadow, I will avenge you. Wu Junshan paused between gritted teeth. These words seemed to burst out from the depths of his soul. Sect Master, leave me behind. Leave me behind. The shadow was not dead. Although he was drenched in blood, his eyes were still as bright as the stars. No, I won't leave. Wu Junshan was unwilling to abandon his brother. That was not his style. Sect Master, leave? Suddenly the shadow roared. In front of Wu Junshan he had never shouted like this. He had always obeyed Wu Junshan's orders and was incomparably respectful. Sect Master, this is my last wish. Don't let me die in peace. Following you is the happiest thing in my life. Farewell. The shadow's sorrowful farewell moved everyone. Many of the guards were also emotional people and couldn't help but tear up. However, the next scene was even more shocking. They saw him disregard the willow branches that pierced through his body and quickly move forward. He directly arrived in front of Lu Wuxin and hugged him. Sect Master, leave? The shadow ignored the pain and roared again. Several willow branches pierced through his body, but he acted as if nothing had happened. He hugged Lu Wuxin with all his might, not letting go at all. Lu Wuxin was also surprised by the other's decisiveness. He was slightly stunned and lost in thought. Wu Junshan clenched his teeth and trembled all over. He roared to the sky, Shadow, I will avenge you. Whoosh! With a tap of his foot he shot up like a rocket and landed on the roof. Stop. Yimeyu seemed to have woken up from a dream. She leaped up and tried to stop Wu Junshan, but found that Wu Junshan, who had already gone all out, was too fast for her to catch up. Lu Wuxin's face was ashen. He didn't expect that the thing he was determined to get would change like this. The shadow burned his life force and erupted with the last bit of power. Even she couldn't break free immediately. However, Lu Wuxin was too powerful. He widened his eyes and shouted with killing intent, Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Heartless Willow, transform. The heartless willow flickered and rapidly expanded, especially the willow branches that pierced through the shadow's body. They rapidly expanded. The shadow's eyes immediately widened and blood flowed out from his eyes. It was very terrifying. However, the shadow revealed a smile, as if mocking Lu Wuxin for not letting Wu Junshan stay. Bang! With a loud explosion, the shadow exploded. His body was blown up by the heartless willow, turning into flesh and blood that scattered all over the sky. Many people's bodies were stained with the shadow's blood and flesh. They were so scared that they screamed. As if they had seen a ghost, they kept stomping their feet and slapping their bodies. The chief heard a splashing sound and his face was wet. A stream of liquid flowed down his cheeks to his neck and then into his clothes. He was stunned for a moment, then jumped up and screamed hysterically. His face turned pale and he kept wiping his face. Then his hands turned blood red. He was in an extremely sorry state and was even more terrifying. Chief, Chief! Seeing him like this, the other guards all shouted. Lu Wuxin looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot, the corner of his mouth revealing a disdainful expression. At this time Yimeyu fell from the roof. She chased after Wu Junshan for a distance, but in the end she still lost track of him. She said in annoyance, Senior, I didn't catch up to him. Although Lu Wuxin felt that it was a pity, he didn't say much. He nodded slightly, then looked at the furious chief, walked straight over and pressed down on his shoulder. The chief finally calmed down, but his face was as pale as paper. Let's talk business. Lu Wuxin didn't give him a chance to breathe and went straight to the point. The chief trembled and said, Wait, I'll go clean up first. Lu Wuxin didn't give him the chance and refused, After we're done talking business, you have plenty of time. The chief rolled his eyes helplessly, but due to Lu Wuxin's prestige, he finally didn't have the courage to refuse. He hung his head dejectedly and said resentfully, All right. After a pause, he said to the others, Clean this place up. Looking at the flesh and blood in the courtyard, many people were already bent over and vomiting, but they could only accept the order. The chief suppressed the urge and fear to vomit and entered the study with Lu Wuxin and Yimeyu. Chapter 11:28. Lu Wuxin was calm and didn't take that disgusting scene to heart. After experiencing the Great War in ancient times, this was simply child's play. Yi Meiyu's expression was a little strange, but it wasn't as serious as the others. She realized that she had a natural fanaticism for this kind of bloodshed. Lu Wuxin sat on the chair and stared straight at the bureau chief. "You said that you've found what I want?" The bureau chief took a few deep breaths and finally sorted out his chaotic emotions. "Yes, I found what you want." Lu Wuxin stretched out his hand. The bureau chief frowned and said in a deep voice, "We agreed earlier that I'll give you what you want, and you have to give me what I want, remember?" Lu Wuxin obviously remembered. That was, she had to make the bureau chief stronger in the shortest time possible. But she didn't intend to do so. She was purely using the bureau chief. Why would she give him benefits? Seeing that Lu Wuxin was silent, the bureau chief's face darkened. "Don't you remember? Then there's no way to cooperate." He had this anger buried in his heart, and now that he was played by Lu Wuxin, even a bodhisattva would be angry. Yi Meiyu hurriedly persuaded, "Calm down, how could Senior forget? Give us what we need first and Senior will naturally fulfill your wish." The bureau chief looked at Yi Meiyu coldly as if saying, "Don't treat me like a fool. Yi Meiyu, you don't have the right to speak here." "Don't have the right." Yi Meiyu's eyes jumped wildly and she almost went berserk. But in the end she suppressed it and said meaningfully, "Bureau chief, you've seen how powerful Senior is just now. You don't want to be Senior's enemy, right?" The bureau chief's heart turned cold. "Do you dare to do anything to me?" This sentence was full of vigor, but he was nervous in his heart. In the end, it was a bit lacking and he seemed to be strong in appearance but weak in heart. Lu Wuxin looked at the bureau chief with a burning gaze. The bureau chief forced himself to be alert, and when their eyes met, he almost looked away guiltily, but in the end he persisted. "I can do what you want, but you have to give me what I want first." "No, what if you go back on your word?" The bureau chief's heart relaxed. He sighed and cold sweat broke out on his back. Seeing the other party give in, he couldn't help but regain some confidence. "If that's the case, then there's no need to talk." Lu Wuxin stood up leisurely, which gave the bureau chief a fright. He subconsciously stepped back and said, "What are you doing?" Lu Wuxin didn't say a word, but his powerful aura enveloped the chief, making him almost unable to breathe. "Don't come over or else I'll call for help," the bureau chief shouted. "Do you think those good-for-nothings outside are my match?" Lu Wuxin retorted. Of course not. Even a 3-year-old child would know this. Was he going to agree just like that? Wouldn't that be a complete loss? Not only would he not gain any benefits, but he would also benefit the other party. Wouldn't his dream of becoming stronger become nothing but a bubble? Wait. Unable to retreat, the bureau chief suddenly stretched out his hand and shouted. "What else is there to say? There's one thing you definitely don't know. The demon race has returned. Do you know? Demons?" Lu Wuxin was stunned. She subconsciously stopped and stared at him. Of course, she knew that the demon race evolved from the Jili tribe. Therefore, her hatred for the Jili tribe had also shifted to the demon race. Hearing that the demon race had returned, her attention was immediately attracted. Seeing that Lu Wuxin was indeed interested, the bureau chief heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Yes, the demon race's army has returned from the heavens beyond heaven. This world is about to change. What's the use of you against me? Wouldn't it be better for us to join hands to fight against the demon race?" Lu Wuxin's eyes flickered and he remained silent. Yi Meiyu looked at Lu Wuxin curiously. She didn't have strong feelings for the demon race. She said blankly, "Senior, what's so great about the demon race? Why do you still need to cooperate with him?" Yi Meiyu was proud and didn't put the bureau chief in her eyes. When the bureau chief heard this, he was furious, but he couldn't do anything. Lu Wuxin shook his head lightly and said, "No, the demon race isn't as simple as you think. Tens of thousands of years ago we defeated them and now we still have to defeat them. But it's impossible with just the few of us. If we have his help, we might have a better chance of winning." Although Lu Wuxin was also a proud person, she wasn't blinded by pride. She had fought with the Jili tribe countless times, and knew how powerful the other party was. Although the demon race was no longer the same as before, and there was no longer Chiyu, wasn't she also incomparable to the past? Therefore, in order to defeat the demon race, she had to be careful and unite all forces. The most important thing was to summon her old subordinates and twist them into a rope. If she really killed the bureau chief, then there was no way to know the whereabouts of these old subordinates. Although she might be able to find them in the future, it would definitely take more time. Seeing that Lu Wuxin hesitated, the bureau chief secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He finally knew that he had won the bet, and his eyes couldn't help but shine. "Okay, I agree to your request. I'll satisfy you now," Lu Wuxin said resolutely. The bureau chief's eyes lit up and he couldn't wait to say, "Okay, I will also keep my promise." Do you dare not to keep your promise?" Lu Wuxin said disdainfully. The bureau chief was greatly embarrassed, and secretly swore that when he became stronger in the future, he would definitely ruthlessly teach this ugly woman a lesson. "Your meridians have already been fixed, and the best time for cultivation has passed. This may be a problem for others, but I have a way to overcome this difficulty. I can directly raise you to the first grade of yuanying." First grade of yuanying. The bureau chief's breathing quickened, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He was wild with joy. He knew a thing or two about cultivators, and understood how difficult it was to reach the first grade of yuanying. This was simply heaven-defying, and was equivalent to the martial king realm. One had to know that number one, who had always followed by his side, had cultivated for most of his life, and also had the guidance of a famous teacher. Only after enduring wind and rain did he cultivate to the martial king realm. His starting point was the yuanying realm, then how powerful would he be in the future? Just thinking about it made him extremely excited. Yi Meiyu curled her lips as if she didn't expect that Lu Wuxin would actually give the bureau chief such a huge benefit, and let him suddenly become one of the experts. However, they didn't know that there weren't so many shortcuts in the world. The bureau chief was happy now, but he was happy too early. His cultivation would forever be confined to the yuanying realm, and this was the aftereffect of hasty growth. No matter what, it was impossible for him to break through to the soul formation realm. However, the bureau chief was blinded by joy and didn't realize this at all, and didn't know this at all. Good, good, good. The bureau chief was incoherent and said good 3 times in a row. He clutched his chest and said impatiently, "Then let's begin." "No problem." Lu Wuxin said indifferently, "Take this pill first." Looking at the black pill in Lu Wuxin's palm, the bureau chief hesitated for a moment and asked, "Will it be fine after I take this pill? Why do you have so many questions?" Lu Wuxin said impatiently. The bureau chief made up his mind, thinking that although this thing didn't look good, it would definitely be effective. Otherwise, why would she spend so much effort to refine this pill? He swallowed the pill in one gulp, and immediately felt a burning sensation in his throat. This burning sensation ran from his throat to his chest, and finally swept towards his internal organs and 8 extraordinary meridians. "Ah!" He could not help but cry out in agony. "What on earth did you feed me?" he gasped for breath. Didn't you ask for this yourself? Do you think it's comfortable to increase your cultivation in such a short time? Bear with it and you'll be fine after you get through it." Lu Wuxin said in annoyance. Seeing that the other party didn't want to harm him, the bureau chief was slightly relieved, but the pain still tormented his body and mind, almost causing him to break down. Bang! He fell to the ground and kept rolling, looking battered and exhausted, crying out in pain. Lu Wuxin looked at him coldly. Actually, she could have lessened the pain, but the other party's uncooperative attitude had angered her. She was a vengeful person, so how could she not take the opportunity to teach him a lesson? The bureau chief rolled back and forth on the ground, screaming incessantly. He felt that his soul was about to fly away, and a huge wave of energy was about to burst his body. Seeing that it was about time, Lu Wuxin reached out and grabbed him, lifting him up. She pointed a finger at his glabella and said, "Remember the circulation path of true qi in the meridians. I'll only say it once, it'll depend on your luck." A light burst out from her fingertip and entered his glabella. He immediately felt that the energy in his body seemed to have found a vent, and flowed along a certain path. He didn't dare to let his guard down, and quickly memorized the corresponding circulation path. After all, he was able to reach his current position because of his extraordinary ability and willpower, so he finally remembered the circulation path of true qi. The energy in his body gradually calmed down, and he let out a long sigh of relief, feeling as if he had just survived a disaster. "I'll pass on a cultivation method to you and you can cultivate it yourself. As for your luck, it'll depend on you." As soon as Lu Wuxin finished speaking, the bureau chief saw a flash of light in his mind, and an ancient cultivation method appeared. He quickly memorized it, afraid that it would disappear. Lu Wuxin let go of her hand, and the bureau chief's body went limp, and he sat down on the ground in a rather embarrassing manner. He quickly got up and patted his clothes, feeling that the pain just now was worth it. He felt better than ever, as if he had become a young man in his early 20s again, with endless energy and strength. Rejuvenation was nothing more than this, right? He did look much younger, with smoother skin and more muscular muscles. This new experience immersed him, and he couldn't extricate himself for a long time. He really wanted to find someone to test himself on and see how powerful he was. Where's the thing I want? Lu Wuxing reached out her hand. The bureau chief quickly found a thick document and said, "These are the abnormal reports we collected according to your request." Lu Wuxing casually flipped through it and her eyes lit up. Outsiders wouldn't be able to see any clues, but for her, it only took one look to determine that this was what she wanted. It would be much easier to gather her old subordinates. Roar. Suddenly, a deafening roar soared into the sky, resounding through the horizon, causing people to tremble in fear. Chapter 1129. In broad daylight, Tang Zheng had already quietly arrived at the Imperial City. The Imperial City had been listed as a forbidden area. Everyone who entered or left had to go through strict inspection. They dug 3 feet into the ground trying to find the 5-clawed golden dragon. In the end they found nothing, but they did not give up. Seeing that the former tourist attraction had turned into a bustling construction site, Tang Zheng sighed, but he also sneered disdainfully. Even if you dig through the ground, you won't be able to find the 5-clawed golden dragon. Tang Zheng used an illusion and walked through the construction site openly. Then he arrived at his destination. He activated the formation and arrived at the Imperial City in the next second. When the 5-clawed golden dragon saw Tang Zheng, its dragon eyes widened. Then it said ecstatically, "You've finally reached the semi-god realm." It realized that the day it regained its freedom was coming. Tang Zheng walked in front of it with a calm expression and said, "Yes, I've reached the semi-god realm." "Then can you let me out?" The 5-clawed golden dragon could not wait to say. "If you go out, what are you going to do?" Tang Zheng asked. The 5-clawed golden dragon hesitated. After being imprisoned here for hundreds of years, it no longer knew what it would do when it went out. Revenge? Yes, it had thought about it. However, because of Tang Zheng's existence, it absolutely could not do so because Tang Zheng would stop it. Tang Zheng's soul imprint was still in its mind, so it did not dare to act rashly. "If you don't have anywhere to go, why don't you stay by my side first?" Tang Zheng suggested. The 5-clawed golden dragon's eyes turned cold and it asked warily, "Why should I stay by your side?" "Of course you have a place to be. You're so strong. Who else in this world can be your match?" "What's my place?" the 5-clawed golden dragon asked. "There's one thing you don't know yet." "What is it?" "The devil army has returned. This world will be turned upside down." "What? The devil army has returned?" The 5-clawed golden dragon was shocked. It had seen the devil clan before and knew how powerful they were. However, the two sides had not had much contact. "Yes, the demons have completely returned," Tang Zheng said solemnly. The 5-clawed golden dragon fell into silence. It was also very clear what this meant. Perhaps there was a place for it to be used, but subconsciously, it did not want to be used by Tang Zheng. By nature, it likes to be free and unrestrained. However, under the eaves, one had no choice but to lower their heads. It knew that if it did not agree, Tang Zheng would not let it out so easily. Taking a step back and leaving this damn place was the next most important thing. "All right, I promise you." The 5-clawed golden dragon nodded. Tang Zheng smiled with relief. The 5-clawed golden dragon was not a fool and had made a smart choice. If it did not agree, perhaps he would have to use some means to make it agree. How could he let such a powerful guy leave him? The 5-clawed golden dragon looked at Tang Zheng aggrievedly and said, "Then can you break the formation now and let me regain my freedom?" "Just you wait." Tang Zheng walked into a small door at the back. It was the eye of the formation, and the heaven and earth obsidian was also buried below. The 5-clawed golden dragon stared at him through the small door, its eyes full of expectation. It had been imprisoned in this damned place for hundreds of years and had long been tired of it. Tang Zheng had long been connected with the formation, so it was much easier to break the formation than expected, especially after he had reached the semi-god realm. "I'll begin," Tang Zheng said lightly. The 5-clawed golden dragon hurriedly nodded. "All right, let's begin." Tang Zheng stretched out his hands and opened his 10 fingers. With a thought he roared, "Rise!" Rays of white light shot up from the floor into the sky. It was the light emitted by the heaven and earth obsidian. In an instant, the small room was filled with white light. Tang Zheng bathed in the light and was filled with a mysterious aura. He was serious in speech and manner and was exceptionally serious. People could not help but feel awe when they saw him. The five-clawed golden dragon looked at him and could not help but have the same thought. It suddenly felt that it was extremely ridiculous. How could it be in awe of a person at the first grade of the semi-god realm? Tang Jing was immersed in the formation. At this moment, every corner of the formation appeared in his mind. Once this formation was broken, the formation that the predecessors had spent so much effort to set up would be destroyed. He took a deep breath and inhaled rays of light through his mouth and nose. In an instant, his body seemed to have become transparent, which was extremely mysterious. Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud sounds suddenly rang out and the ground trembled. At the same time, the imperial city also trembled as if there was an earthquake. However, this trembling did not affect the entire capital like before. Instead, it was limited to the imperial city. This was because Tang Jing deliberately reduced the influence of the formation after controlling it. In fact, if he had not coincidentally controlled this formation with Qi Yu's help, he would have wanted to break this formation. He was afraid that the huge capital would have been affected, and who knew how many buildings would have been destroyed in a day. Now the influence had been reduced to the lowest level. This was the limit of what Tang Jing could do. He did not want to turn the world upside down just because he let the five-clawed golden dragon go. Although he said so, everyone in the imperial city turned pale with fright and started to make a big fuss. Many of them had experienced the battle of the imperial city. When they felt that the sky was shaking and the earth was shaking, their expressions immediately changed. They shouted hysterically, "Everyone get ready. The dragon might be coming out." Dragon. This word immediately suppressed the fear in their hearts. Their purpose was to find the dragon. When they knew that the target that they had been searching for so long was finally about to appear, many bold people even had a bright light in their eyes as they stared at the ground. The ground trembled non-stop and smoke and dust splashed up on the ground. After a while, it turned into rolling yellow sand, blocking people's vision. "I can't see," someone in the crowd shouted loudly. However, in the end there were still timid people who panicked and did not know where to go. They shouted and fled. The imperial city was in chaos. The ground collapsed bit by bit and a large black hole appeared and formed a vortex. The sand and sand spun along the vortex and fell bit by bit into the black hole. No one knew when it would end. Although yellow sand filled the sky, there were still people who saw this scene. Many smart people immediately thought that the dragon might be in the black hole. Then wouldn't they be able to find the dragon if they jumped down? The bold people wanted to jump down. However, they could not get close at all. They were swept up by the huge sandstorm and thrown in all directions. Tang Jing also sensed the strange phenomenon in the imperial city, but it was unavoidable. Therefore he did not get distracted and still focused on breaking the formation. The ground shook more and more violently, and the white light became more and more intense. Whoosh! A piece of heaven and earth obsidian flew up from the ground and floated in the air. Then, other pieces of heaven and earth obsidian flew up one after another. Chapter 11:30. The heaven and earth profound stones that filled the sky blossomed with dazzling light as they spun around Tang Jing, making it hard for the eyes to take in. Tang Jing stared straight ahead, his expression solemn as he watched this scene unfold. The dark stones of heaven and earth flew up and the foundation of the formation was shaken. The formation was about to be broken. Crash! The four walls collapsed quickly and the space trembled more violently as if it was about to collapse. The formation was originally a different space created by the ancient people. Once the foundation of the formation was shaken, the space could no longer exist. Crack! With a crisp sound, the chains that trapped the five-clawed golden dragon opened automatically. The dark iron of 9 serenities could not be shaken by ordinary weapons and magic treasures. Only by breaking the formation would the chains open. The five-clawed golden dragon's eyes shone with a dazzling golden light. He was ecstatic and skeptical. He slowly took one of his dragon claws out of the chains as if he could not believe that all this was real. For hundreds of years he had imagined this scene many times. Now he finally got rid of these damn chains. He looked at the other dragon claws. The remaining 4 dragon claws were firmly locked in the chains. Crack! Another chain was opened. He finally believed that all this was real. He could not wait to retract his dragon claws and break free from the chains. Tang Jing saw this scene from the corner of his eyes, and his heart was filled with disappointment. The arrogant 5-clawed golden dragon actually had such a cautious side. Perhaps, these hundreds of years of imprisonment had too great of an impact on it. He quickly gathered his thoughts and waved his hand in the air. A ray of light burst out from Sumeru world. Whoosh! Whoosh! All the dark stones of heaven and earth disappeared and were absorbed into Sumeru world. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the four walls collapsed and turned into a dark void. The trembling became more and more intense and ripples spread out. Crack, crack. The remaining 3 chains were opened and the 5-clawed golden dragon was completely free. Roar. The 5-clawed golden dragon raised its head proudly and was in high spirits. Its whole body shone with a golden light as its dragon chi erupted. Bursts of thunderous explosions resounded in the air as the dragon's roar resounded throughout the heavens and earth. Tang Jing strolled out of the small room and looked at the 5-clawed golden dragon that was cruising in the narrow space. He nodded and said, "I have fulfilled my promise." The 5-clawed golden dragon stared at Tang Jing with his eyes wide open. Finally he nodded and said, "Thank you." Tang Jing smiled faintly as his gaze fell on the chains on the ground. The 9 Serenities mysterious iron is taken from the 9 Serenities of the ghost world. It's a rare material for forging weapons and magic weapons. The 5-clawed golden dragon saw through Tang Jing's thoughts and explained, "That's the case, then keep it. Don't waste it. Maybe it'll be useful in the future." Tang Jing waved his hand and kept the mysterious 9 Serenities iron in his Sumeru world. Tang Jing looked up at the space that was about to be completely destroyed and said, "Let's go." The 5-clawed golden dragon looked around with a complicated expression. This was the damned place that he had been trapped in for hundreds of years. Finally he was going to leave. Brr. The dragon roared loudly as the 5-clawed golden dragon shook its head and wagged its tail. Boom. The space was destroyed. A man and a dragon soared into the sky from the black hole. The sand stopped spinning and everything seemed to be still. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 2 figures soared into the sky. The 5-clawed golden dragon bloomed with golden light that could almost blind people under the sunlight. This scene was too shocking. As long as one saw it, they would never forget it for the rest of their life. A tremor from the soul spontaneously arose. Bang, bang, bang. Many people's legs went soft as they knelt on the ground and prostrated themselves. Their mouths were muttering incantations. There was no lack of people who were bold before. Divine dragon, divine dragon. Originally they vowed to catch the divine dragon. But when they saw it, they realized the gap between the 2 sides. Its divine might was not something they could resist at all. The fear that came from their souls seemed to be innate and embedded in their bones. Whoosh! The 5-clawed golden dragon did not even look at them. It shook its head and wagged its tail as it soared into the sky. It circled in the air once, awe-inspiring. Dragon soars the 9 heavens. In the vast capital, thousands of pairs of eyes witnessed this scene. The restless capital instantly quieted down as if a spell had been cast on it. The traffic stopped, the pedestrians stopped walking, and even the water in the fountain seemed to have frozen. "Dragon?" someone shouted shakily. His voice was hoarse as if it was squeezed out from a crack in a stone. Then exclamations rose one after another, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. "Dragon, divine dragon!" Bang, bang, bang. The densely packed crowd knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the 5-clawed golden dragon. Wuxia was the descendant of the dragon. In myths and legends, the dragon had a status that other mythical beasts could not compare to. In the past, many people thought that this was just a legend and not to be believed. Now that they saw this scene with their own eyes, many people's worldview was turned upside down. So, dragons really existed. A miracle. There's someone on the dragon's head. An exclamation attracted everyone's attention. There was actually a person standing on the dragon's head. He was high and mighty like a god overlooking all living things. Weren't dragons high and mighty, insufferably arrogant? How could they let someone stand on their head? This didn't make sense. Many people widened their eyes, wanting to see that person's appearance clearly, but they were too far away to see clearly. This enormous and ancient city completely erupted. Many people were shouting and yelling as they ran through the streets and alleys to spread the news. In an instant, the streets were emptied as everyone stared at the scene in the sky. Many people began to believe that there were gods in this world. Perhaps those miraculous myths and legends might not be unfounded and might actually be true. Although the government had refuted the rumors many times, this scene in front of everyone's eyes was no longer something that could be erased by means of refuting rumors. After all, the eyes of the people could not be blinded forever. From this moment on, the world had undergone a subtle change and so had the hearts of the people. Tang Jing stood on the dragon's head, looking down at all the living things below. He did not have any thoughts of being superior. He knew that with the return of the demons, the worldview of the people in this world would be turned upside down. Since this could not be stopped, why not go with the flow and give them a heads up first? Otherwise, in the future they would be even more afraid and the situation would be even worse. The bureau chief and Lu Wuxin heard the dragon's roar and saw the other guards outside the door turn pale with fright as they stared at the sky, dumbfounded. They hurriedly rushed out and looked up just in time to see the scene in the sky. The five-clawed golden dragon's body was so huge that it almost stretched across half the sky. In the capital it could be seen clearly from any angle. Although they did not see the person on the dragon's head clearly, the bureau chief immediately called out his name. Tang Zheng. That person is Tang Zheng? Lu Wuxin was surprised. The bureau chief nodded. Other than him it can't be anyone else. He knew very well that Tang Zheng had deliberately concealed the truth about the dragon. This time, other than Tang Zheng, who else had the ability to make the dragon appear? Immediately, the jealousy in his heart erupted like a volcano. He should be the one standing on the dragon's head. After all, he was the one with the highest authority in this world. That was his position. What qualifications did Tang Zheng have? Lu Wuxin's pupils constricted slightly, and he did not say a word. Yi Meiyu's eyes were also filled with shock and she said in fear, "Senior, this?" Although she was already a cultivator, she still felt a deep fear towards the dragon's might emitted by the five-clawed golden dragon, and even her words became hesitant. Lu Wuxin did not listen to Yi Meiyu's words. With a tap of his foot, he flew towards Tang Zheng. However, with a sudden flash of golden light, the five-clawed golden dragon and Tang Zheng disappeared together. A second ago they were still in front of their eyes, but in the next second, only white clouds and bright sunlight remained in the sky. Many people's jaws almost fell to the ground. How did the divine dragon disappear? However, many people also reacted. As expected of the divine dragon, it possessed a supreme divine ability. Otherwise, how could it disappear so miraculously? Lu Wuxin stopped in her tracks and floated above the courtyard house. Her eyes searched everywhere, but she could not find any traces of the five-clawed golden dragon and Tang Zheng after a long time. She originally wanted to rush up and investigate. However, at this moment after calming down, she felt a lingering fear. If she really rushed up and confronted the dragon head-on, what should she do? Was she a match for the dragon? If she was in her peak state back then, she would definitely not have this worry. However, at this moment she had to consider this point. She struggled for a long time but still did not get an answer. However, she immediately made another decision: to leave the capital. She regarded Tang Zheng as an enemy, and had almost killed his parents earlier, so she had formed a grudge with him. If she stayed in the capital with her cultivation, she might not be able to obtain any benefits. Of the 36 stratagems, leaving was the best strategy. First, she would summon her old subordinates and carry out the long-planned plan. Only then would she not be afraid of Tang Zheng and the dragon. She had already made up her mind and immediately landed back in the courtyard house. She looked deeply at the bureau chief and said, "We're leaving." With a flash of his figure, he walked out of the courtyard house with large strides. Yi Meiyu put away her thoughts and followed closely behind him. Looking at the backs of the two people leaving, the bureau chief looked at his fists. Crack, crack. His fists cracked as he ordered the guards on his left and right, "Send someone to keep an eye on a few places in the information we collected." He understood that it was a fool's dream to send someone to follow Lu Wuxin. She wanted this information so much, so she would definitely do something. However, he could not guess her intentions for the time being. The only way was to wait for the rabbit to show up. He was very clear about the details of the information he gave the other party. As long as he sent someone to wait, he could figure out the other party's true intentions. He raised his head to look at the empty sky, his eyes flashing with a faint light as he said, "Wu Junshan and Lan, you have encountered such a great calamity. Tang Zheng will definitely not let this matter rest. We cannot stay in this place any longer." He did not want to reveal that he was a cultivator for the time being. This was his trump card. In order to avoid being exposed, he could only not confront Tang Zheng directly. Chapter 1131. High up in the sky, Tang Zheng saw the reactions of the masses. However, he wasn't showing off, so he didn't want to cause too much fear. "Let's go." As soon as he gave the order, the five-clawed golden dragon flashed with a golden light, and the man and dragon disappeared from the sky. In the next second he appeared in a small alley in the capital. He was so fast that even Lu Wuxin, who had soared into the sky, did not notice anything. This was the five-clawed golden dragon's ability. Once it was free, the power it displayed was beyond Tang Zheng's imagination. Not only did the formation of the imperial city restrict its freedom, but it also suppressed its divine abilities by quite a bit. In the small alley there were few people and it was quiet. A commotion could be heard from afar. Obviously, the disappearance of the dragon god had caused a commotion among the people. Tang Zheng looked down and saw the five-clawed golden dragon wrapped around his arm. However, this dragon was very small, like a small snake. The five-clawed golden dragon could change its size and appearance. Tang Zheng wasn't surprised, but he still frowned and said, "Although you've shrunk, I'm afraid others will be frightened if they see you like this." The five-clawed golden dragon rolled its eyes helplessly. Its eyes were full of light as it muttered, "Humans are so troublesome." Seeing Tang Zheng's frown deepen, it quickly added, "I wasn't talking about you." Whoosh! The five-clawed golden dragon disappeared in a flash of golden light. In the next second, a vivid tattoo appeared on Tang Zheng's arm. It was a vivid and lifelike five-clawed golden dragon. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with surprise. "You actually have this ability. This way the five-clawed golden dragon wouldn't scare others." "Of course I'm very capable." The five-clawed golden dragon's voice sounded in Tang Zheng's mind. Telepathy. Tang Zheng wasn't surprised. Although the five-clawed golden dragon was attached to his arm, it didn't know that the inner demons lived in his body like Chiyu. Ever since the inner demons returned from the island nation, they had become very quiet. Chiyu had left Tang Zheng's body, but the inner demons had failed to do so. Now he seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. Hearing the five-clawed golden dragon's voice, the inner demon said faintly, "What's there to be proud of? Who are you?" The five-clawed golden dragon was shocked and quickly asked. It did not know about the existence of Chiyu and the inner demons. Who I am has nothing to do with you." The inner demons snapped. "That's enough." Tang Zheng didn't want the two of them to quarrel again, so he quickly stopped them. "Five-clawed golden dragon, since you heard the voice of the inner demons, then let me tell you, there is another soul living in my body, the inner demons." "Who are the inner demons?" The five-clawed golden dragon was confused. "What qualifications does he have to criticize me like this? Who am I? When I was in my prime, you little dragon had not yet been born." The inner demons said disdainfully. "Arrogant." The five-clawed golden dragon flew into a rage. "Both of you talk less." Tang Zheng reprimanded. One person and one dragon were intimidated by Tang Zheng's pressure and did not dare to be noisy. Tang Zheng took large strides out of the small alley and arrived at the main street. He saw that everyone was whispering to each other and discussing spiritedly. From time to time, they would look towards the sky as if they wanted to see if the Divine Dragon Society would appear. Tang Zheng understood that his good intentions had worked, and this would definitely cause an earth-shattering change in people's views. When he returned to his house, everyone was standing in the yard not looking at the sky. Although they knew about the five-clawed golden dragon, they were still deeply shocked when they saw the scene in the sky with their own eyes. Of course, they knew who was standing on the dragon's head and couldn't help but feel honored. Lan Yu was also standing in the crowd. She had just returned when she saw the scene in the sky. She didn't have time to tell everyone that she was ambushed before she was interrupted by this incident. When Tang Zheng leisurely strolled back, it was as if she had just awoken from a dream. She madly rushed towards Tang Zheng, grabbed his hand and impatiently said, "Little Zheng, quickly save your father." Tang Zheng was suddenly startled. He subconsciously held her hand and anxiously asked, "What happened to him?" His heart trembled. He actually had a feeling of worry. "I went with him to see the leader to seek justice for you. I didn't expect to meet Lu Wuxin. Your father and Shadow stopped her in order to save people. Lu Wuxin is very powerful, so they must be in danger now. Quickly save them." Lan Yu said anxiously. When the others heard this, they were also shocked and gathered around. Tang Zheng originally thought that he didn't have much feelings for his parents, but when he suddenly heard that Wu Junshan was trapped, his natural reaction shocked him. Unknowingly, he also began to worry about these two people. Even he didn't notice this before. He didn't have time to carefully analyze his thoughts and hurriedly said, "I'll go now." At the same time, he was also very surprised. Why would Lu Wuxin be in the leader's residence? Could it be that during Lu Wuxin's disappearance she had already colluded with the leader? What was she trying to do? He shook his head and temporarily didn't think about the reason. He turned and left. "I'll go with you." Lan Yu immediately chased after him. She had no other choice but to leave her husband first. This time, with her son's help, she was determined to return and lend her husband a hand. When the others saw this, they also chased after him and said in unison, we'll go help you together. So, suddenly a figure appeared in front of them. It was as fast as lightning, arriving in the blink of an eye. However, his footsteps were swaying and his body was weak. His body was covered in blood and his face was pale. He clenched his teeth and couldn't hide his sorry appearance. After taking a closer look, Tang Jing recognized him and subconsciously exclaimed, "You're back." The others were also stunned and looked at him with incomparable surprise. This was poles apart from his usual appearance, as if he was a completely different person. It was hard to imagine what he had experienced. Wu Junshan ran all the way, even ignoring the strange phenomenon in the sky. When he finally reached the door of his house, he saw the familiar figure. His vision turned black and he weakly fell to the ground. Tang Jing was shocked. He stepped forward bravely and hugged him, shouting, "Wake up!" Seeing that he didn't respond at all, he immediately put his hand on his wrist and injected a trace of true qi into his body. He felt that his qi was weak and his vitality was exhausted. He had lost a lot of blood and was on the verge of death. Tang Jing turned pale with fright. This injury was not a normal kind of injury. It was hard to imagine what he had experienced for him to be reduced to such a state with his cultivation. Tang Jing's face immediately became gloomy like 10,000-year-old ice, saying, "Don't worry, I definitely won't let you die." At this moment, seeing Wu Junshan injured with his own eyes, he finally understood that Wu Junshan had imperceptibly left a deep shadow in his heart. The word family seemed simple. Normally he wouldn't even think about it. But after all, blood was thicker than water. Since the two sides met again, Wu Junshan's actions were indeed compensation, trying to restore the father and son relationship. "Little Zheng, you have to save him," Lan Yu impatiently said. Tang Jing slightly nodded. Without saying a word, he hugged Wu Junshan and walked home. "Where's the shadow?" Lan Yu suddenly asked. Looking around, she couldn't find any trace of the shadow. Wu Junshan was already unconscious and couldn't speak. Of course he couldn't tell her the answer. The shadow is very powerful and has a way to hide its whereabouts. It must be hiding again. Lan Yu found an answer for herself. But she already had an ominous premonition in her heart. She just didn't dare to think too much about it. "Heng, you've gone too far. You dare to hurt our people. You guys go back first. I'll go meet Lu Wuxing." Tian Chanzi was skilled and bold. He was provoked by Wu Junshan's miserable appearance and turned to leave. "Be careful," Tang Jing warned. He had fought with Tian Chanzi before and knew her strength. So he wasn't worried about Tian Chanzi. The group of people returned to the villa. Tang Dehai saw Wu Junshan covered in blood and jumped up from the sofa in fright. In this period of time, his relationship with Wu Junshan and his wife grew day by day. He had already forgiven Tang Zheng's biological parents and got along well with them. "Little Zheng, what's wrong?" Tang Dehai anxiously asked. "Grandfather, don't worry. I will save him." Tang Jing entered a room and laid Wu Junshan on the bed. Blood immediately dyed the bed sheets red. "Junshan, wake up." Lan Yu was like a pear blossom in the rain, sobbing as she called out. Wu Junshan stood to the side. His eyes were already wet. He begged, "Tang Jing, you must save master." Tang Jing nodded. He looked at everyone and said, "You guys go out first. I will heal him." Okay. You heal him first. If you need anything, we will be outside." Lan Yu wiped her eyes. The back of her hand was wet from tears. She suppressed her mixed feelings and said, "Do you need my help?" Empyrean Fairy asked. Tang Jing slightly shook his head. "I have a way." Everyone left the room. Only Tang Jing and Wu Junshan remained. Wu Junshan's face was pale. If it weren't for his extraordinary perseverance, an ordinary person would have died on the way. He secretly sighed in his heart. Looking at his stiff cheeks, it was not hard to imagine his all-powerful appearance in the past. Tang Jing hurriedly gathered his thoughts and helped him up. He placed his palms on his back. A ball of true qi rushed into his body from his back and wrapped around his heart. Originally, his heartbeat had almost stopped. However, after being stimulated by the true qi, it began to beat vigorously. It was as if a sleeping person was suddenly awakened. He immediately regained his vitality. Thump thump. His heartbeat became stronger and stronger. His life force recovered a little. However, the situation was still not optimistic. At the same time, Wu Junshan's inner strength seemed to have been awakened. It strongly rejected Tang Zheng's true qi. The two forces fought in his meridians. "Ah!" Wu Junshan let out a blood-curdling scream and actually woke up. When he opened his eyes and saw Tang Zheng, his eyes flashed with a bright light as he said, "I was useless. I couldn't get justice for you. P.S. I was delayed 2 days ago and did not update. Sorry, I will update now. Chapter 1132. Tang Jing hurriedly supported Wu Junshan and said, "Don't speak, calm your mind. I'll heal you." Chapter 1133. Tang Jing was surprised to see the changes in Xiao Tian's body. He asked, "Your power has changed a lot." Chapter 1134. He made a solemn vow and looked like he would never compromise. Tang Jing tried his best to persuade him. This time it was different from the past. He tried to bring as few people as possible. Chapter 1138. Looking at the slowly rising souls of the golden crows, Tang Jing asked thoughtfully, "Do you mean that they want to revive the souls of the golden crows?" "It's not impossible. You should know that the golden crow is extremely powerful and extraordinary. Moreover, it's said that it has great significance to the Yellow Emperor's tribe." The inner demon said in a deep voice. "What significance?" "The golden crow is a divine bird that the Yellow Emperor has raised since he was young. The Yellow Emperor and the Yellow Emperor's heart are connected. Back then, the golden crow played a big part in the Yellow Emperor's reign." The inner demons continued to talk about the secrets of the ancient times. In addition, it said that the 9 golden crows almost died when they were young. It was the Yellow Emperor who didn't hesitate to use his own soul to feed the golden crow. In the end, he raised the 9 golden crows and turned them into divine birds. Using souls to feed the golden crow? Tang Jing turned pale with fright. He had never heard of such a thing before. The inner demons didn't find it strange at all and said casually, "In the ancient times, there are many things that you can't imagine. Many spells have disappeared in the long river of history, so there's no need to make a fuss about it." Tang Jing nodded and said, "The Yellow Emperor used his soul to feed the golden crow. In other words, one of the 9 golden crow souls is the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor?" Tang Jing still remembered the time when the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul controlled Tian Chanzi. The strength that Tian Chanzi exploded with was something that even the 100 Faces Star Lord, who was stronger than Tian Chanzi, couldn't do anything about. The inner demon said, "You've hit the nail on the head. These golden crow souls contain the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. If there's a way to gather these golden crow souls, do you think the Yellow Emperor will be reborn?" Tang Jing's heart skipped a beat. Of course, he didn't know the correct answer, but he had a premonition that the Yellow Emperor would be reborn in this way, just as the inner demons had said. Both the Yellow Emperor and Qiyu had been reborn. Wouldn't these 2 archenemies be fighting each other until the heavens and earth were turned upside down? That would be a catastrophe. The soul of the golden crow will ascend to the heavens, and the 9 suns will shine in the sky. You won't be able to stop it. The inner demons vowed. Is there really no other way? Isn't Qiyu your enemy? If the Yellow Emperor is reborn, wouldn't that give Qiyu an equal opponent? Isn't that what you want? The inner demons asked. Tang Jing was stunned. That's right, wasn't this his original goal? Now that things had come to this, could it be that he was going back on his word? His shining soul of the golden crow was rising. There were already 4 suns in the sky. Originally, because the mountain peak was covered in snow all year round, it was unbearably cold, but now it was scorching hot. The pure white snow on the mountain peak was gradually melting, turning into streams that flowed down the mountain. This can't go on like this, right? Tang Jing asked. The inner demons were silent. The 5-clawed golden dragon said indignantly, "The golden crow is nothing. Let me go and meet it." Tang Jing's arm flashed with a golden light. The 5-clawed golden dragon was eager to give it a try. It obviously wanted to compete with the soul of the golden crow. Wait a minute. Tang Jing hurriedly stopped it. The inner demons were right. Since Qiyu couldn't be controlled and had colluded with the summoned demons, he must be plotting something big. He didn't have any way to stop him at the moment. If the Yellow Emperor was reborn, it might be an unexpected countermeasure. At the very least, the Yellow Emperor was the ancestor of the current Wuxia people. He would lead his former subordinates to resist Qiyu. Although a great war would break out, at least most people would be saved and the world would be saved. Thinking of this, Tang Jing decided that he didn't want to stop the soul of the golden crow. Boom. A loud sound came from a mountain peak. The soul of the golden crow that was rising into the sky suddenly exploded with a dazzling light. Tang Jing was shocked. He looked into the distance and faintly saw a fierce battle erupting on the mountain peak. Damn, it's the Empyrean Fairy and the others. Although it was difficult, Tang Jing immediately made a judgment. With such a big movement, the others were completely awakened and knew that the enemy was attacking. Suddenly, the shadows of the hands on the top of the mountain churned, and a mysterious force rose into the sky. The remaining souls of the Golden Crow rose into the sky at a much faster speed. Tang Jing didn't care about these people. He was afraid that something would happen to the Empyrean Fairy and Li Xiaotian, so he flew to the mountain peak on his sword. On the top of the mountain, several people were fighting fiercely. The Empyrean Fairy was obviously more skilled and was fiercely suppressing the other party. Just now, the soul of the Golden Crow was attacked by the Empyrean Fairy. It was still struggling in the air to resist the power of the Empyrean Fairy's attack. Li Xiaotian was not idle either. Although the cultivation of the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm was not enough for him to be like a fish in water, he had the strength to protect himself for the time being. Who are you? How dare you stop us? Do you know who we are? Someone roared aggressively. The Empyrean Fairy snorted and said, How can I turn a blind eye to what you're doing? Do you know what we're doing? No matter what you're doing, the 9 suns you've summoned will definitely turn the earth into a scorched earth. Thousands of creatures will die because of you. No matter what your purpose is, I will never sit by and watch such a cruel act. The Empyrean Fairy said firmly. In order to resurrect the Yellow Emperor, what's this sacrifice? Resurrect the Yellow Emperor? The Empyrean Fairy raised her eyebrows in surprise. Obviously she didn't know the secret. Why are you scared? Then quickly retreat. The other party said proudly. The Empyrean Fairy's face darkened without hesitation and said, So what if he's the Yellow Emperor? It's rumored that he's a wise emperor. If he knew that you're resurrecting him at such a high price, what would he think? It's not up to you to tell us what to do. The other party's face darkened. There was some worry between his eyebrows, but he said sternly, Whoosh! A figure fell from the sky. Everyone couldn't help but turn their heads to look. Tang Jing. Li Xiaotian shouted in surprise. The Empyrean Fairy's eyes showed deep worry. She said to Tang Jing, Do you know what they're doing? Maybe they want to resurrect the Yellow Emperor. Tang Jing said. What, you already know? The Empyrean Fairy was shocked. Even the others were curious. They didn't know how this guy who suddenly appeared knew such a secret. Their methods are too cruel. They actually want to pay such a huge price to achieve this. The Empyrean Fairy said hatefully. What price? Tang Jing was at a loss. The Empyrean Fairy pointed to the soul of the Golden Crow in the sky and said, 10 suns in the sky, the world will be plunged into misery and suffering. Many lives will die in this scorching heat, don't you know? Is that so? Tang Jing was shocked because he did not think of this. Don't you have the shooting sun arrows and heaven-shocking bow? Have you forgotten what these 2 divine weapons were used for? The Empyrean Fairy asked. Tang Jing was startled. With a flash of inspiration, he immediately remembered the use of these 2 divine weapons. This was the divine weapon that Hui used to shoot down the sun. Wasn't it used to shoot down the extra sun? How did the Golden Crow die? Could it be that he died at the hands of Hui under the shooting sun arrows? Heaven-shocking bow, shooting sun arrows, how did you get these 2 divine weapons? When the other party heard these words, he turned pale with fright. The illustrious reputation of these 2 divine weapons was like thunder to them. These 2 divine weapons were not forged by Hui, but had existed since ancient times. It was unknown which almighty expert had forged these divine weapons. If it wasn't for the 2 divine weapons fusing into one, it wouldn't have been able to threaten the existence of the Golden Crow. However, the power of these 2 divine weapons was not something that ordinary people could unleash. For a long time, no one could pull open the heaven-shocking bow and shoot out the shooting sun arrows. In ancient times, many Golden Crow died under these 2 divine weapons. Later on, the divine weapons fell into the hands of the Yellow Emperor, and all the Golden Crow in the world were exterminated, leaving only 9 Golden Crow chicks. The Yellow Emperor adopted the Golden Crow chicks and sealed the divine weapons. From then on, the divine weapons were covered in dust, and many people even forgot about its existence. Until 10,000 years later, the world had already undergone a huge change. The Yellow Emperor was no longer in this world, but the 9 Golden Crows were still alive. For some unknown reason, the Golden Crows went crazy and rose into the 9 heavens, turning into 9 suns. 10 suns hung in the sky, causing the common people to suffer unspeakably. At this time, Hui had gone through a lot of hardships, and finally found the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows. He drew his bow and shot the 9 golden crow, saving the people, and was praised by the world. Although the golden crow was dead, the soul of the golden crow was not extinguished. It landed on the 9 mountain peaks at the top of the world. This matter was a secret. It was unknown how this group of people found out about this news, and then summoned the soul of the golden crow, causing the scene of the 10 suns shining in the sky to appear in the world. Is there anything strange about me having these 2 divine weapons? Tang Jing asked. The other party's expression kept changing as he sized up Tang Jing, as if he wanted to see through him. Suddenly the other party's eyes lit up and he screamed in shock, "Skywalker, you're actually a Skywalker." This group of old subordinates of Chi Yu were extremely familiar with Skywalkers. Back then, Chi Yu was a Skywalker, which was why he had the strength to fight against the Yellow Emperor. They had a natural rejection and hostility towards Skywalkers. Just a single celestial, their enmity instantly soared. They stared at Tang Jing, their killing intent surging. "You are a Skywalker. It is not surprising that you can pull the heaven-shocking bow and shoot the shooting sun arrows. These 2 divine weapons belong to the Yellow Emperor. How can they fall into the hands of a Skywalker like you?" The other party said aggressively. Tang Jing frowned and said, "Why can't it fall into my hands? You speak as if I have disgraced it." "You are disgracing it. Are you worthy of possessing the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows? Hurry up and hand over these 2 divine weapons, or else you won't be able to leave this mountain today," the other party said solemnly. Tang Jing laughed disdainfully. "What qualifications do you have to say such words? It seems that we have the advantage right now. Although you talk a lot, your strength is obviously not as good as your words." "Aha, do you think we only have this few people?" The other party did not think so. He was not afraid at all. Instead, he laughed wildly. His gaze was like that of a little sheep. Tang Jing did not like this kind of unbridled gaze. Originally, he was prepared to ignore the other party, but since this matter involved the people of the world, he could not sit idly by. Chapter 1139. The other party let out a long roar towards the sky. The roar shook the heavens and spread far and wide. Immediately, roars came from the other mountains in response. In that moment, the roar reverberated like thunder in one's ears. "Crap, he's calling for help." The Empyrean fairy immediately saw through the other party's intentions and prepared to attack again. At this time, the 8 golden crow souls had all risen to the 9 heavens and turned into suns, releasing blazing light. Only the soul of the golden crow that was being attacked by the Empyrean fairy was still struggling in mid-air, unable to move forward. The 9 suns were shining brightly in the sky, and the heat was unbearable. The ground seemed to be about to melt. The snow on the mountain melted at a speed that was flying to one side. With a rumble, an avalanche actually occurred, causing the mountain to shake and the earth to shake. The trees at the foot of the mountain quickly withered and spontaneously combusted with a boom, turning into charcoal. The heavy people on the mountain peak were the ones closest to the 9 suns. In an instant, they felt as if their water had evaporated and their entire bodies were on fire. Tang Jing was shocked by this scene. Although he had felt the heat just now, but now it was not just a little heat but a life-threatening situation. He suddenly raised his head and stared at the 9 suns. The glaring light made it hard for him to open his eyes. The Empyrean fairy's face darkened and urged loudly, "Tang Jing, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and stop them, otherwise this world will be over." Tang Jing also realized that the situation was worse than he had imagined, and immediately took out the heaven-shocking bow and sun-shooting arrow. When he saw that he had successfully knocked the arrow, the other party was obviously shocked and shouted, "Stop him!" So. The few of them abandoned the Empyrean fairy and Li Xiaotian and attacked Tang Jing at the same time. At the same time, on the vast land of Wuxia, everyone raised their heads and looked at the scene in the sky in disbelief. When the 9 suns appeared in the sky, many people subconsciously thought that they were seeing things, but when they saw the same reaction as them, they understood that they were not seeing things. Before they could understand what was going on, an intense heat descended from the sky and sprinkled on the vast earth. Everyone immediately felt uncomfortable. Although the 9 suns were tens of thousands of meters in the sky and were very far away, the scorching heat was still very uncomfortable after traveling for tens of thousands of meters. Although it was not as bad as the scene on Mount Everest, many people still felt a strong burning sensation on their bodies. "Quickly go into the house and hide." Some smart people immediately realized what was going on and rushed to the shade, shouting and making a fuss. In an instant, the streets and alleys were in an uproar. Everyone screamed and rushed to the shade, casting glances at the sky from time to time. Those 9 suns were exceptionally dazzling. They emitted a bewitching radiance that made people tremble in fear. What's going on? This question appeared in everyone's mind. But no one knew the answer. Compared to the other countries, Wuxia was the one who felt it the most. This was because these suns rose from their sky. The country was also panicking and did not know what to do. This phenomenon had only been recorded in a few words in myths and legends. Everyone treated it as nonsense after dinner. No one believed it at all. A few days ago, the divine dragon had appeared, and now there were 9 suns in the sky. Could it be that the end of the world was coming? Although there were a lot of messy guesses, no one knew what to do. Boom. Suddenly a house was on fire. The strong sunlight caused some flammable materials to react naturally, and the fire spread rapidly. The fire alarm immediately rang through the streets and alleys. No city in Wuxia could be spared. Even the water in the rivers was evaporating at a speed visible to the naked eye, reducing bit by bit. Tang Jing did not know about the disaster facing thousands of worlds because the enemy's attack had arrived as scheduled. The joint attack of several people could not be underestimated. However, Tang Jing did not retreat. He still pulled the bow into a full moon shape and loosened his fingers. The bowstring trembled violently. The sun-shooting arrow turned into a ray of light and shot out with a whoosh. It tore through the air with a terrifying force and arrived in the sky in the blink of an eye in front of a golden crow's soul. No! Someone shouted hysterically, trying to stop all of this, but their speed was not as fast as the sun-shooting arrow. Of course, once they realized that they could not stop the sun-shooting arrow, they poured their anger onto Tang Jing. They looked at him as if they wanted to skin him alive. Kill? A few attacks were about to hit Tang Jing. All of his attention was focused on the shooting sun arrows and heaven-shocking bow. He had no time to retaliate. However, he was not worried because with the Empyrean fairy here, it was impossible for him to sit back and do nothing. His guess was accurate. When the enemy attacked, she also moved at the same time. Mountain River Map. A painting scroll flew out from her hand and floated above everyone's heads. The painting scroll slowly unfolded, and the endless mountain river pattern was vividly displayed in front of everyone. These people's target was Tang Jing. Even if the mountain river map was already above their heads, they did not take it seriously. Tang Jing was the main point. Whoosh! A gust of wind flew out from the mountain river map. Like a whirlwind, it immediately swept up 2 people. They immediately realized that something was wrong and let out heart-wrenching screams. However, it was too late. The 2 of them were thrown down the cliff with a whoosh and were ruthlessly thrown down the cliff. Just as a long sword was about to pierce Tang Jing's chest, a huge rock fell from the sky and landed on the long sword. Kacha, the long sword broke into pieces. All of the attacks collapsed in an instant and disappeared into thin air. Tang Jing was safe and sound. He stared at the sun-shooting arrow that broke through the sky. Boom! With a loud sound, the sun-shooting arrow hit the soul of the golden crow. A violent explosion occurred and turned into a few sparks. Look! At the same time, the people in Wuxia saw this scene. In the sky, one of the suns had actually exploded. For ordinary people, the distance was too far. They could not see the sun-shooting arrow at all. They could only see one of the suns exploding into a ball of fire. When the soul of the golden crow was hit, the effect was immediate. The unbearable heat wave immediately reduced by a few degrees. Everyone instantly understood that there was hope. As long as the suns exploded, they could be saved and return to their old days. At this moment, everyone understood that the appearance of so many suns in the sky was not a good thing. It was a sign of doomsday. Many people almost gave up hope. Now that there was a turning point and there was a turning point, everyone's hope was ignited. Their eyes were gradually filled with joy. However, many people had the same question in their minds at the same time. What was going on? The suns exploded when they came out? What exactly happened in the process? In the island nation thousands of miles away, Saint King looked in the direction of Wuxia absent-mindedly. The miracle of the 9 suns illuminating the sky also entered his eyes. He could not help but turn pale. He was a demon expert, so of course he had heard of the legend of Hou-Yi shooting down the suns in ancient times. Naturally, he thought of this point. Could it be that the golden crow is not dead and has come out again? Saint King muttered to himself. Beside him, a treasure box flickered with a mysterious light. Chiyu's voice sounded. This is not the golden crow, but the soul of the golden crow. In this world, only the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow can deal with the soul of the golden crow. These 2 divine weapons are in Tang Jing's hands, so it must be this brat who is shooting arrows to attack the soul of the golden crow. Qiyu analyzed incessantly. Saint King was puzzled and said, "Isn't Tang Jing our enemy? Why would he shoot the soul of the golden crow? This is not in his interest, right? Do you know what the appearance of the soul of the golden crow means?" Qiyu asked. Saint King shook his head blankly. Once the soul of the golden crow is out of control, 10 suns illuminating the sky, then this world will be plunged into misery and suffering. Although Tang Jing's ability is not very great, he has the heart of a savior. He will not watch this world be destroyed, or rather, most people die an unnatural death without doing anything. Do you understand? Qiyu asked. Saint King seemed to be deep in thought. In the end he shook his head and said, "I still can't understand Tang Jing's actions. Isn't he offending both sides? Not only did he offend us, he also offended the Yellow Emperor's people. In the future, if both sides don't like each other, no matter who wins or loses, his life will not be easy." Qiyu sneered and said, "This is the difference between you and him. I have been with him day and night for such a long time, but I don't dare to say that I completely understand his thoughts. Sometimes he is like a fool, willing to sacrifice everything to save others. Sometimes he will weigh the pros and cons and avoid the cons. In short, he is a very contradictory person, or you can say that he is an indecisive and soft-hearted person. To achieve great things, being indecisive and soft-hearted is a great taboo. How can he compare to you, ancestor?" Saint King said flatteringly. Of course, this was also his heartfelt words. Although Tang Jing and Qiyu were both Skywalkers with the 9 Saint body, it was obvious that Saint King did not think highly of Tang Jing. The demon race liked people who were decisive in killing. They would not hesitate to sacrifice some for their goals. The Yellow Emperor's former subordinates have already made their move. The Golden Crow's soul. What a good plan. Back then, the Yellow Emperor used his soul to feed the Golden Crow. It was an unintentional act. I'm afraid he never dreamed that he would need to rely on the Golden Crow to revive himself. Qiyu sneered. He was the person involved, so of course he knew the relationship between the Golden Crow and Qiyu. As for the reason why the Golden Crow's soul appeared, he could guess it without thinking. It was none other than the Emperor's former subordinates wanting to use the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in the Golden Crow's soul to condense and be reborn. However, in order to condense the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, they had to summon the 9 Golden Crow souls and extract the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul from them to condense into a whole. Qiyu knew better than anyone what this meant. Although he did not experience the history of Hou-Yi shooting down the suns, he had seen the Golden Crow long ago. He deeply understood the power of the Golden Crow. Chapter 1140. Qiyu pondered for a long time before saying disdainfully, "It's not that easy for the Yellow Emperor to be reborn. There's no need for us to panic because of them. Our top priority is to find a body for me so that I can possess it and be reborn. As long as I am alive, even if the Yellow Emperor is reborn, what is there to be afraid of?" Saint King understood and hurriedly nodded, saying excitedly, "Ancestor's words are reasonable. Ancestor, don't worry, we have already sent out countless people to search for a suitable body. There will definitely be a result soon." At the peak of the snow mountain, a lot of the snow had already melted, revealing the bare cliff. It was like a young girl who had been stripped of her clothes, delicate and pitiful. Everyone had witnessed the power of the sun-shooting arrow with their own eyes. High up in the sky, the sun-shooting arrow struck the Golden Crow's soul. With a boom, the Golden Crow's soul shattered into pieces, turning into flames that filled the sky and scattered in all directions. This scene was truly shocking. The sound of the explosion was like a clap of thunder that landed in their hearts, causing their internal organs to tremble. Many people subconsciously froze as they stared straight at the sky. The scattered souls of the Golden Crow were not completely annihilated. Instead, they were dancing and circling in the sky. Many of these people had never seen the power of the sun-shooting arrow with their own eyes. Now that they had seen it with their own eyes, they finally understood how terrifying it was. Oh! A sharp howl pierced through the sky. The anger within caused the air to surge, as if it was about to pierce through the heavens. Following that, screams rose and fell one after another, causing one's heart to tremble in fear. "Hee, are you angry just like that? I only managed to hit one Golden Crow's soul." Empyrean Fairy sneered. She did not put the anger of these people in her eyes at all. Instead, she felt that it was to her heart's content. "Tang Jing, don't stop. Continue shooting down the other Golden Crow's souls." Hearing Empyrean Fairy's urging, Tang Jing did not delay any longer. Taking advantage of the moment when the enemy was distracted, he once again pulled open the heaven-shocking bow. The sun-shooting arrow had already returned to his hand and was firmly placed on the sun-shooting arrow. Whoosh! The shooting sun arrow once again pierced through the sky. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was rending. A long scar appeared in the sky as if a huge space was being torn apart. It was ferocious and terrifying. Boom! Another golden crow soul was struck by the arrow again, and it turned into flames that filled the sky. The soul of the golden crow was a living target. It floated in the sky and looked majestic, but there was no way it could avoid the attack of the shooting sun arrows. Many heart-wrenching screams rang out, and many figures arrived on time. In an instant they arrived at the mountain peak where Tang Zheng and the others were at. "Who are you?" When they saw the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows in Tang Zheng's hands, everyone's eyeballs almost popped out as they asked hysterically. Tang Zheng's expression didn't change. He didn't answer at all and immediately shot the third arrow. The shooting sun arrows whistled through the air. Some people did not want to be outdone. They leaped up and directly blocked the shooting sun arrows. The magic treasures in their hands bloomed with dazzling light. Boom! This person was like a kite with a broken string. He flew out and smashed into the snowy mountain far away, creating a huge crater and causing an even bigger avalanche. When the others saw this scene, they were shocked by the power of the shooting sun arrows and remained silent for a long time. But in the next second, someone let out a surprised cry. Under everyone's watchful eyes, that person actually flew out of the huge crater. His entire body was covered in blood, but his life was not in danger. Everyone revealed an expression of disbelief. In their subconscious, the shooting sun arrows and the heaven-shocking bow were peerless divine weapons. Even the golden crow was not its match, so how could a normal person survive under the shooting sun arrows? But now it seemed that this was not the case. It was true that the shooting sun arrows and the heaven-shocking bow were extremely powerful, but they were far from being as powerful as they had imagined. There was a way. This thought surfaced in many people's minds. Although the soul of the golden crow was shot, it was not completely annihilated. It could completely reform and complete its goal. It was impossible for the shooting sun arrows to completely stop them. Stop him. Someone shouted and rushed towards Tang Zheng at the same time. Surrounded by enemies, Tang Zheng remained unmoved, and once again pulled open the heaven-shocking bow. The arrow just now did not hit the soul of the golden crow, so this arrow was bound to hit it. The shooting sun arrows whistled through the air once again. Some people tried to stop them, but the Empyrean fairy was one step ahead of them and blocked their path. She had obviously understood the enemy's intentions, so she definitely could not let the enemy succeed and intercept the shooting sun arrows. The fairy of the nine heavens pointed her finger and a water dragon flew out from the mountain and river map of the gods of earth and Vale. With a swing of its tail it hit one of the men. With a loud bang, the man was smashed into a mountain and no longer made any sound. Although the shooting sun arrows were not enough to kill in one shot, the Empyrean fairy's ultimate kill was extremely easy. Stop this woman. A few people disregarded their own safety and blocked in front of the Empyrean fairy, trying to separate her and Tang Zheng, so that she would be too busy to take care of Tang Zheng. This method was indeed effective. When he shot the third soul of the golden crow, the enemy's attack arrived as expected, but he had no way of blocking it. He could only watch as the attack arrived in front of him. Break! With a delicate shout, Li Xiaoyan's moving figure blocked in front of him. A bow and arrow appeared in her hand, and she shot an arrow repelling the enemy. She was an 8th-level Grand Master, and even among these people, she was not an ordinary person. Tang Zheng looked at her gratefully. She looked back and smiled, her charm boundless, and said resolutely, "With me here, you don't have to worry unless they step over me. Be careful." Tang Zheng nodded heavily, and shot another arrow without any hesitation, aiming at the fourth soul of the golden crow. "Stop him, we can't let him continue." Seeing that they did not succeed in stopping Tang Zheng, these people were furious. So many people, but they could not do anything to the three of them. This was simply a great shame. Everyone used all their skills and cast spells again trying to kill the three of them. These people's cultivation was not weak. Most of them were in the Golden Core and Yuanying realms. If they were in the secular world, they would definitely be first-class masters. It was a pity that they were facing top masters like the Empyrean Fairy and Tang Zheng. Even if the other party had a large number of people, they could not take the initiative for a while. "Get out of the way, I'll take care of them." Suddenly, a person flew out from behind the crowd. When his feet landed on the ground, it was as if he had stepped on a mountain peak with a great force. The ground shook violently a few times before it stopped. The crowd automatically made a path for this person to pass through. He was not tall, but he was handsome. He was a standard young man, enough to make many young girls scream in love. Who exactly are you people? Why do you want to stop the soul of the Golden Crow? He asked with a livid face. His voice was like that of an announcer, articulating perfectly. In fact, before he was possessed, he was indeed a host of a small television station. However, now he had changed completely. He had become a general under the Yellow Emperor in the ancient times. His name was Wuxia. Wuxia's cultivation was obviously higher than the other former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. He was in the divine transformation realm. Tang Jing's eyes narrowed slightly. He stared straight at the other party. He also realized that the other party's cultivation was not ordinary. He said, "Who are you? Why do you insist on summoning the soul of the Golden Crow?" "My name is Wuxia." Wuxia. Tang Jing frowned. He had never heard of this name. The inner demon said lazily, "In the ancient times the Yellow Emperor had 2 generals, one male and one female. You have already seen the female general. She is Lu Wuxing. Now that you have seen the male general, your luck is not bad." Tang Jing smiled bitterly. He did not know if he should say that he was lucky or unlucky. He had encountered both of the Yellow Emperor's generals. Dealing with Lu Wuxing alone was not easy. Now that Wuxia was involved, it was undoubtedly going to be even more difficult. "So you are Wuxia. In the stories passed down from the ancient times, your name resounded like thunder. Legend has it that you are very benevolent. Why are you being so cruel this time?" The Empyrean fairy asked in disbelief. She had also heard of Wuxia's story. Wuxia was a master swordsman of his generation. His swordsmanship had reached the peak of perfection. It was said that when it came to swordsmanship, no one could surpass him. Even the Yellow Emperor's swordsmanship was slightly inferior to his. The reason why his name was immortalized was not because of his swordsmanship, but because of his benevolence. After the Battle of Zhuolu, many of the Yellow Emperor's subordinates advocated for the extermination of the entire Jiuli tribe. Wuxia, however, strongly advised the Yellow Emperor not to exterminate the entire Jiuli tribe. Only then could the Jiuli tribe be preserved. The Empyrean fairy found it hard to imagine that Wuxia would risk universal condemnation and sacrifice so many lives to summon the soul of the Golden Crow. Wuxia's face flashed with hesitation and struggle. He remained silent for a long time, his expression fluctuating. Finally, he clenched his teeth and said, "There are many things that are beyond one's control. Moreover, in order to revive the Yellow Emperor, necessary sacrifices are unavoidable." The Empyrean fairy shook her head in disappointment. "The rumors are indeed not trustworthy. Those praises should not have landed on you at all. That is a stain on your good name." Wuxia's expression became more and more conflicted. In the end, he said with a long sigh, "Why are you stopping us? The current Wuxia people were founded by the Yellow Emperor. If the Yellow Emperor is reborn, he will lead this people to rise again. Don't you know how great and glorious this is?" "Haha, ridiculous. What's the point of exchanging countless lives for prosperity? I would rather choose to live a peaceful life than to enjoy the prosperity exchanged with blood and lives," the Empyrean fairy said firmly. Wuxia's face flashed with embarrassment. He said resentfully, "Who is right and who is wrong is not something that you can decide with just a few words. However, since you have chosen to oppose us, then you are our enemies. Don't blame us for being merciless. No one needs you to show mercy," the Empyrean fairy said without any trace of politeness. Tang Jing also nodded in agreement. "That makes sense. You don't care about the people of the world, so how can we respect you?" "Humph, then there's nothing more to say." Wuxia's expression became fierce as his aura soared into the sky. Chapter 1141. When Moi heard Tang Jing's words, he no longer had any misgivings. His aura changed greatly as he took a step forward. This was a sharp sword chi. Pinnacle novel. Pa pa pa. The exposed rocks around his feet all exploded, turning into piles of gravel and then into fine powder. The sword chi blew, like the wind sweeping away the clouds, drifting in all directions. Looking at this scene, Tang Jing and the other 2 simultaneously felt a strong sense of oppression. Especially Li Xiaotian, it was especially strong. Shua. With a flash of sword light, Battle Soul appeared in Tang Jing's hand. At that time, Qiyu controlled Battle Soul and flew in the air. After Qiyu left Tang Jing's body, the control of Battle Soul fell back into Tang Jing's hands. Tang Jing questioned the Sword Soul as to why this happened. but the sword soul did not know what to do and could not give an answer. In the end, Tang Jing had no way to pursue the matter and could only act as if nothing had happened and continue to use Battle Soul. Indeed, Battle Soul did not malfunction again. Good sword. Moi's eyes lit up and could not help but praise. Of course, Tang Jing said it was a good sword. Tang Jing, be careful. He is also a sword expert and is best at finding the loopholes in other people's sword techniques. Empyrean Fairy reminded. Tang Jing was shocked. A swordsman was very powerful, but under normal circumstances, his own sword techniques were good. But other than Moi's extraordinary sword techniques, the most praiseworthy thing was that he was good at finding the loopholes in other people's sword techniques. This was extraordinary. This was because only a person whose swordsmanship and cultivation had reached the acme of perfection could achieve this in a short period of time. From this, it could be seen that Moi's cultivation was extraordinary. Moi did not bat an eyelid. He did not mind that Empyrean Fairy had seen through his specialty. Tang Jing was 120% alert. After Battle Soul stabbed out, he was fully focused and used all his skills. Emosia didn't see it at all. She lightly raised her arm and casually drew a line in the air, like in or moving the surface of a lake. With a splash, ripples appeared on the surface of the lake, but in reality the air was stirred up incessantly. It was like 1,000 layers of waves, and in an instant, it arrived in front of Tang Jing. With a heavy momentum, the incomparably sharp War Soul Sword's attack suddenly deviated and landed on the ground, causing a huge crack to spread out from under his feet. Rumble. A large chunk of the mountain peak was shaved off. The rolling boulders fell straight down the mountain, causing an even bigger avalanche. It was as if the mountain was collapsing and the earth was cracking. However, the people on the mountain peak did not have the slightest reaction. They were even stingy with the slightest bit of superfluous glances. Tang Jing's expression changed drastically. He was well aware of the power of his sword, but it was easily neutralized by his opponent. The difficulty of this was not something that could be explained in a few words. From this, it could be seen how high Emosia's cultivation was, and how exquisite her swordsmanship was. Your sword technique is too inferior compared to my sword. Emosia shook his head as if he felt that it was a pity for the War Soul Sword. The Divine Sword did not have a corresponding sword technique, which was a pity for sword practitioners. Is that so? I don't think so. For a long time, Tang Jing thought that his heaven-flying immortal sword technique was perfect, and that it was a sword technique that he could rely on to protect his life. But later on, as his cultivation and vision increased, he realized the shortcomings and limitations of the heaven-flying immortal sword technique. When he saw the Tai Chi Yang sword technique, he immediately understood that this was a sword technique that was of a higher level and more powerful than the heaven-flying immortal sword technique. Now that Emosia had pointed out the inadequacy of the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, although this was an indisputable fact, Tang Jing subconsciously did not want to admit it and refuted it without hesitation. Emosia's mouth hooked up into a devilish smile, which was enough to captivate most women. He said unconcernedly, "There is no need to argue about the facts. If you don't believe me, you can attack again. We can sit down and discuss the sword." Shwa. The sword light rose again and Tang Jing was unconvinced as he attacked again. This time, the heaven-flying immortal sword technique was even more fierce, dazzling the eyes. Sword chi crisscrossed like an inescapable net, covering every direction of Emosia, and even every direction that he would change. This move seemed perfect, and even Tang Jing felt that he had displayed the pinnacle of the heaven-flying immortal sword technique. It was not inferior to the one that Tian Chanzi had taught him. Emosia smiled and commented, "The more perfect a sword technique seems, the more flaws there are. This is because perfection is only for oneself. For others, there is no sword technique in the world that can reach the realm of perfection. Everyone can see through the flaws, and the decisive factor is the level of one's vision and cultivation." Tang Jing could not help but admit that Emosia's words were reasonable, but he still heavily snorted, and used all of his strength on this sword. "You won't give up until you reach the Yellow River. Then I will fulfill your wish." Emosia said coldly and waved his finger again. Ka. The War Soul Sword stopped, and it stopped in the middle of 2 fingers. Emosia actually used 2 fingers to easily clamp down on the Battle Soul Sword. This was truly unimaginable, causing people to be flabbergasted and find it hard to believe. Tang Jing's expression suddenly changed, and his voice also changed a bit. He asked absent-mindedly, "How did you do this?" Emosia smiled and said, "I told you your sword technique has flaws. As long as you find the flaws, breaking your sword technique is easy." If Emosia had said this before, perhaps it would have been boastful, but now the truth was in front of him. Even if Tang Jing did not believe it, it was an undeniable fact. He could not help but feel a bit dejected. He had practiced the heaven-flying immortal sword technique for so long, and had defeated countless enemies, but it was actually so easily defeated by Emosia. This feeling of defeat was too strong. If Tian Chanzi saw this scene, he would definitely be even more depressed. This was because the heaven-flying immortal sword technique was King Simon's high-level sword technique. It was the sword technique that all the disciples in the sect wanted to practice. But in front of Emosia, this seemingly invincible sword technique was like a clay chicken or a pottery dog, unable to withstand a single blow. How could this huge contrast not make people feel a mixture of feelings, and be incomparably depressed? But Tang Zheng's depression disappeared in a flash. He did not truly lose, and he still had a move, Tai Chi Yang sword technique. In the past, he would forget the Tai Chi Yang sword technique at any time. Unless it was a critical moment, he would not be able to remember the sword moves. However, ever since he had completely mastered the 6 moves of the first level of this set of sword technique, the Taiji dual form sword technique had undergone a qualitative change. It no longer disappeared without a trace in his mind, but appeared clearly in his mind. Those sword moves that he had already memorized by heart, with just a thought, the sword moves would be extremely powerful. The 6 moves of the first level of the Taiji Yin and Yang swordsmanship were completely displayed by him in a flash. Immediately, a gust of wind blew over the mountain peak. Sand and pebbles flew up into the air and intertwined into a special pattern, the Taiji Yin and Yang fish. Emosia cried out in surprise. He stared straight at the sky and then looked at the sword technique that Tang Jing displayed so easily. He seemed to be deep in thought and said in amazement, "This sword technique is as different as heaven and earth from the previous one. One is like the stars in the 9th heaven, and the other is like a spark in the mortal world. There is no way to compare them." Tang Jing was surprised. Although he knew that the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique was superior to the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, he did not expect it to be superior to this extent. Emosia's comment was definitely not simple. He praised the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique to an extremely high position. This was something that Tang Jing did not expect. Even the Empyrean fairy, who was watching from the side, was secretly amazed. She had once heard that on the path of the sword, no matter if it was an expert who had been famous for a long time or a new rising star, as long as the other party did not enter Emosia's discerning eyes, then it would be very difficult for him to even give a few words of evaluation, let alone praise. The Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique broke this habit. There was only one explanation for this, and that was that the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique was so powerful that it won Emosia's favor. Although Tang Jing did not understand the specific situation, he vaguely guessed this point. He was both happy and curious. What other treasures were hidden in the Langya Pavilion? This sword technique was from the Langya Pavilion. In addition, if the treasures hidden in the higher floors were to appear, it would probably cause an even greater shock and its power would be greater. He could not help but look forward to the next trip to the Langya Pavilion. Speaking of which, he did indeed have the qualifications to go to the Langya Pavilion. He had already made the decision to go to the Langya Pavilion as soon as this matter was over. Now that the enemy was getting stronger, if he did not learn more powerful skills or pass them on to the people around him to increase their strength, then the situation on his side would be very bad. Swish, swish, swish. The Tai Chi Yin Yang fish spun quickly. Streaks of sword light fell from the sky like a rain of swords, falling towards Emosia. All the attacks gathered together to attack Emosia alone. It could be seen how much importance Tang Jing attached to him. Emosia's expression became a bit gloomy for the first time. He looked at Tang Jing with burning eyes and said, "I really underestimated you. I don't know who taught you this sword technique. But without a doubt, the person who created this sword technique must be a peerless genius." After a slight pause, Emosia said with emotion, "There are geniuses in the Pinnacle Mountain generation. If so, in the years that I disappeared, the world has changed so much. Not only the mountains, rivers, and lakes, but even the development of sword techniques is so praiseworthy. It is really a fortunate thing." Tang Jing did not know who created the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique, but he had long admired him from the bottom of his heart. Hearing Emosia's praise, Tang Jing did not thank him. Instead, he continuously activated the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique. Swish, swish, swish. Swords fell like rain. Tens of thousands of swords shot towards Emosia. Swish. A streak of sword light lit up from Emosia's hand. The sword light bloomed from his hand. It did not have the brilliant brilliance of 1,000 fathoms. Instead, it returned to its original state. It was extremely simple, with only the tip of the sword shining with a little bit of light. But without a doubt this was a good sword. No matter if it was an amateur or an expert, as long as they saw this sword, they would not hesitate to praise it as a good sword. It was indeed a good sword. It was the divine weapon that accompanied Wuxia on his expeditions to the north and south, Ganjiang. Ganjiang was the name of this sword. It was very domineering. Back in the day, it was transported to the north and south of the river. The combination of Ganjiang and Wuxia caused the enemies to tremble in fear. One was merciful, the other was bloodthirsty. When the Ganjiang sword was refined, it used human blood and lives as a sacrifice. It was full of ruthless blood energy. It was a peerless weapon. Only a merciful person could use this sword. Chapter 1142. Wuxia waved Battle Soul, and the originally bright Battle Soul immediately underwent an earth-shattering change, turning into a blood-red color with light flowing around it. The sword light suddenly rose up like a waterfall, rushing towards the sky to welcome the rain of swords falling from the sky. Boom boom boom. The sword light flickered in the air, overflowing with brilliant colors, but disappeared without a trace in an instant. The Ganjiang sword flew into the sky and rushed into the Tai Chi Yin fish. Kacha. Like a sudden clap of thunder, the Tai Chi Yin fish split into pieces, turning into a cloud of dust that drifted away with the wind. A red light streaked across the sky, the Ganjiang sword slicing through the air towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's expression suddenly changed. He raised the War Soul sword, and with a ding-dang sound Tang Zheng flew out with the War Soul sword, landing on the edge of the cliff, almost falling down. Good. When the other Yellow Emperor's old subordinates saw this scene, they all clapped their hands in joy. Previously they were fiercely suppressed by Tang Zheng and the other two, and this resentment was hard to get rid of. Li Xiaotian came to Tang Zheng's side like a gust of wind, supporting him and asking with concern, "How are you?" Tang Zheng shook his head, swallowing back the blood in his mouth, and said, "His sword technique is really powerful. Just now the opponent's attack had defeated his Tai Chi Yin sword, and it was defeated in a single exchange." It could be seen how powerful the opponent's sword technique was. Wuxia's expression was not good. He looked at Tang Zheng and said, "You can be proud because just now I used my sword technique to defeat you, not to find the flaw in your sword technique." Wuxia did not find the flaw in Tang Zheng's sword technique? When the others heard this, their expressions changed greatly because they understood the meaning of this sentence too well. Tang Zheng's sword technique was definitely very exquisite, so even Wuxia was unable to find his flaw in such a short time. Why did he have this kind of luck, to be able to cultivate such an extraordinary sword technique? In addition, if his attainments in this sword technique were to become even more profound in the future, would Wuxia still be his opponent? Immediately, many people had murderous intentions towards Tang Zheng. They made up their minds that this time they had to keep him here. They couldn't let the tiger return to the mountain. Tang Zheng did not know what these people were thinking. He simply realized that the Taiji dual form sword technique was extraordinary. What sword technique is that? Wuxia couldn't help but ask curiously. Taiji duality sword art. Wuxia furrowed his brows. Clearly he had never heard of this sword technique. With his seniority, if he hadn't heard of this sword technique, then it must have only appeared after his death. Who was this kind of genius that actually created this set of sword techniques? Wuxia's heart skipped a beat. If he could meet such a master swordsman, then his life would not be in vain. Good sword technique. The Taiji gives birth to the yin and yang, interlocking and complementing each other. Contains the Tao of heaven and earth. Do you know who created it? Wuxia was not stingy with her praise. Tang Zheng shook his head. He also wanted to know who created the Taiji dual form sword technique, but there were no records of it in the Langya Pavilion. Seeing Tang Zheng shake his head, Wuxia could not hide the disappointment on his face. "General Mo, kill him to prevent future troubles." The others shouted. Wuxia was a general under the Yellow Emperor. These people were of lower rank than him, so they called him General Mo. Wuxia's sword was pointed straight at Tang Zheng. The blood-red sword light flashed, and the sharp sword chi shattered the surrounding air, turning it into a vacuum. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold. He understood that the other party wanted to kill him, so he became even more alert. Xian Nu of the Nine Heavens took light steps and stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him as she stared at Wuxia. Wuxia calmly looked at the Empyrean fairy and said, "You are indeed extraordinary. Even your magic treasure is extraordinary." If you want to stand up for him, then let's first determine a victor. Although I don't kill women in my life, since you are an enemy, then you are not included in the list. The ninth heaven mystical maiden was as cold as ice. Emosia was poles apart from the rumors, which made her feel rather gloomy. She stiffly said, "Humph, to kill a woman, you need to have the ability to do so." As soon as she finished speaking, she pointed her finger. The mountain river map in midair flickered with a mysterious light, then flew above Emosia's head. A huge suction force suddenly appeared, and a tornado swept over, trapping Emosia. It was like a strong shackle had locked him down, causing him to be unable to move in an instant. Emosia's expression was normal as he said, "Your magic treasure is indeed extraordinary." After he finished speaking, he raised his head to look at the mountain river map and said, "You want to suck me into this magic treasure? It must have the ability to imprison others. It's not simple. There's actually another world inside this magic treasure. However, I presume that you haven't completely grasped the magic of this magic treasure. Otherwise it wouldn't be so difficult to imprison a person." Emosia's vision was unique. He only needed to take a look to discern the magic of the mountain river map. The mountain river map was passed down to the Empyrean fairy by her father, the Emperor of Heaven. As for the true mysteries of the mountain river map, the Emperor of Heaven didn't explain clearly. He only let the Empyrean fairy explore it herself. The Empyrean fairy had explored it for many years and had indeed discovered many of the mountain river map's mysteries. Every time she felt that she had discovered the true mystery of the mountain river map. Not long after, she would overturn this judgment. In short, the mountain river map was like an endless treasure trove. It was as if it was impossible for people to fully grasp it. The Empyrean fairy's heart moved. She had to admit that Emosia's vision was right. However, the more it was so, the angrier she was. Since he had such unique vision, he could completely benefit the common people. Why did he summon the soul of the golden crow to harm the common people? She shouted and clenched her slender jade-like hands. She shouted, "Mountain river map, return!" Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The wind blew and the mountain rocks danced. They flew directly toward the mountain river map and disappeared within it. As for the others, they felt the terrifying attraction and felt that they couldn't resist at all. Thus, they hurriedly dodged in all directions and avoided the attack range of the mountain river map. The Empyrean fairy didn't distribute the attack power to the others. Thus, when she saw everyone's reaction, she wasn't surprised at all. She didn't care and instead focused on dealing with Emosia. All the attack power of the mountain river map gathered on Emosia. Emosia also felt the strong pressure. He raised the Ganjiang sword. The blood-red sword light rushed into the sky and rushed toward the mountain river map as if it was going to tear it apart. The two rays of light and power collided in midair. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Tang Jing knew that he couldn't help, but since the Empyrean fairy had fought for an opportunity for him, he naturally couldn't let such a great opportunity go to waste. Without batting an eyelid, he drew his bow and aimed at another golden crow soul. Stop. Chapter 1143. Just now, Tang Zheng's arrow aimed at the fourth golden crow's soul didn't succeed as expected. It was intercepted by Emosia. Now that Emosia was pinned down by the Empyrean fairy, he had enough time to deal with the golden crow's soul. However, things didn't go as he wished. When he aimed at the fourth golden crow's soul, a delicate cry exploded like thunder. Two people flew up from the mountain peak and blocked Tang Zheng's path. Stop. Tang Zheng looked at them in surprise. It's you two? These two were Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu. He didn't expect to meet them here. Humph, haven't you been hiding from me? How dare you show up now? Tang Zheng asked jokingly. Lu Wuxin looked left and right. When he saw Emosia, his eyes lit up and he couldn't hide his joy. Today is different from the past. Why wouldn't we show up? Tang Zheng, you've already fallen into our encirclement, yet you still dare to shoot down the golden crow's soul. You really don't want to live anymore. Humph, is that so? It's too early to say such big words. Tang Jing said disapprovingly. Seeing the sudden appearance of the two people, not only was Tang Jing shocked, but the other old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor also looked at the two in disbelief and shouted, "Who are you people?" Lu Wuxin suddenly turned around. She said with a dignified expression, "You don't even recognize me? I'm Lu Wuxin." With that, she stretched out her palm. With a flash of green light, the heartless willow appeared in her palm and swayed with the wind. Heartless willow. Everyone couldn't help but cry out in surprise. They looked at Lu Wuxin with shining eyes, as if they wanted to see the valiant and heroic aura of the past. However, after looking for a long time, there was no trace of that aura. "You're really General Lu?" Everyone was skeptical. Lu Wuxin's thick brows furrowed as she shouted angrily, "Open your eyes and take a look. How can I be fake?" Without a doubt, Lu Wuxin's aura completely crushed these people. Especially when the Wuxin willow swayed in her palm, it added to her credibility. "She is General Lu." Someone seemed to finally believe her and said loudly. Lu Wuxin looked around complacently as if he was inspecting his troops. In fact, many of them were her former subordinates. However, after the possession and rebirth, everyone had changed their appearances. For a moment they did not match up with the people in their memories. Lu Wuxin sighed with emotion. He had almost missed the opportunity to meet these people, and had almost missed the important moment of summoning the Golden Crow's soul. If he hadn't obtained the information from the chief and followed the trail all the way here, it would have been difficult for him to meet up with the rest of the troops. Back then, when she died on the battlefield, the Yellow Emperor was still alive. When she reincarnated, she found that the Yellow Emperor was already dead, so she wanted to revive the Yellow Emperor. Therefore, she planned to gather her old subordinates and accomplish this feat. Of course, she didn't have a concrete plan before, but she was confident that she could brainstorm a way to revive the Yellow Emperor after gathering her old subordinates. When she found the movement at the peak of the snowy mountain and the soul of the Golden Crow in the sky, she immediately thought of a way to revive the Yellow Emperor. She impatiently rushed over and coincidentally saw this great battle. Although she did not hear the confrontation between Wuxia and Tang Zheng, she recognized that the other party was her old acquaintance Wuxia from the Ganjiang sword. During the Battle of Zhuolu, Lu Wuxin died in battle, but Wuxia came back to life. Wuxia was fighting fiercely with the Empyrean fairy. When he saw Lu Wuxin from the corner of his eyes, he immediately confirmed her identity and said, "Lu Wuxin, beat them back. Don't let them harm the Golden Crow's soul." Lu Wuxin nodded seriously. "Don't worry, Wuxia. With me here, they won't be able to harm the Golden Crow's soul." Tang Jing narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Lu Wuxin. "You're no match for me. What ability do you have to stop me?" "Humph, who says I'm no match for you? I'm no longer the same as before. You can't see through me," Lu Wuxin said proudly. Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly contracted and his eyes lit up. He carefully discovered that Lu Wuxin had indeed changed. "Your cultivation has increased?" Lu Wuxin laughed out loud. "You're not completely blind yet." Tang Zheng stared straight at the other party. Judging from her aura, her cultivation was definitely not low. Moreover, since he couldn't see through her, she was probably at the semi-deity realm. Semi-deity realm. Lu Wuxin nodded. "You're quite observant." Lu Wuxin's cultivation had indeed reached the first stage of the semi-deity realm. She was different from ordinary cultivators when she was reincarnated. Although she was only at the Yuanying realm when she met Tang Zheng last time, her cultivation was even weaker than Tang Zheng's. However, her cultivation was extremely high when she was alive, far surpassing the Yuanying realm. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for her to recover to the semi-deity realm in time. That was how Wuxia recovered. Tang Zheng snorted coldly. "So what if you're at the semi-deity realm? Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Tang Zheng's aura changed greatly. His aura surged as if he was a completely different person. Lu Wuxin's eyelids twitched. She had fought Tang Zheng head-on before, so she was well aware of his strength. However, the strength displayed by Tang Zheng at this moment was completely different from what she remembered. "You." Lu Wuxin extended a finger and pointed at Tang Zheng in disbelief. "Your cultivation has increased by so much? How is this possible?" In her impression, it wasn't surprising that Tang Zheng's cultivation had increased by so much that it wasn't inferior to hers. Tang Zheng was cultivating normally while she was recovering her strength. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. From this, it could be seen that Tang Zheng's cultivation speed was terrifying. "If you can do it, why can't I?" Tang Zheng asked with a smile. Lu Wuxin's face alternated between red and white. She originally thought that she could crush Tang Zheng with her current cultivation and take revenge for the past. However, it seemed that she had thought too highly of herself. Her expression kept changing and her mind turned thousands of times. For a moment she didn't know what to do. However, she quickly calmed down and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She wasn't alone. She had so many subordinates, so how could she be afraid of him? On the contrary, she could take this opportunity to get rid of him completely. This enemy had to be eliminated, otherwise when he grew stronger in the future, it would be harder for her to deal with him than to ascend to the heavens. Yi Meiyu had been silent the entire time. When she heard that Tang Zheng had reached the semi-god stage, her entire body trembled, and her eyeballs almost popped out. This was a realm that she did not even dare to dream of, but she never thought that Tang Zheng would be able to do it so easily. The gap between the two of them was getting bigger and bigger, and it was like a natural chasm, causing her to feel a deep sense of powerlessness. Senior, you must not let him go this time. Otherwise there will be endless trouble in the future. Yi Meiyu clenched her teeth as she fanned the flames. Lu Wuxin snorted and said, I know better than you. When Tang Zheng heard Yi Meiyu's words, he was not surprised at all. Instead, he looked at her with some pity and said, Yi Meiyu, if you get involved with them, not only will you harm yourself, you will also harm the Ye family in the future. Seeing that I still have some relationship with the Ye family, I advise you to rein in the horse at the edge of the cliff and stop being so obstinate. Yi Meiyu's face revealed a crazed look as she roared sinisterly, Tang Zheng, what right do you have to tell me what to do? I think you should be the one who should rein in the horse at the edge of the cliff. If you go against Senior, you will die without a burial ground. I want to see how heartbroken that bitchy Ding Dang will be at that time, haha. Tang Zheng raised his thick eyebrows, killing intent surging in his eyes. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to insult Ding Dang? Before he finished speaking, Tang Zheng moved. Like a whirlwind, he rushed towards Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu was shocked and retreated in panic. The reason she dared to shout at Tang Zheng was because she had Lu Wuxin's support. She actually knew very well that she was not a match for Tang Zheng at all. She had no chance of winning against him and would only be asking for humiliation. Stop with me here, how can you be so presumptuous? Seeing that, Lu Wuxin took a step forward and arrived in front of Tang Zheng. The Wuxin Lu in his hand danced in the air, a green light flashed and swept towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng dodged to the side, barely dodging the attack of the Wuxin Lu, and extended his long arm. Pop! A loud slap rang out, and Yi Meiyu's face immediately had the imprint of Tang Zheng's 5 fingers. Her cheeks quickly swelled up, making her look extremely miserable. You! Yi Meiyu covered her face in disbelief. She did not expect that Lu Wuxin would not be able to stop Tang Zheng, and instead let him succeed. However, she did not know that Tang Zheng had the intention to kill her. If not for Lu Wuxin stopping her, it would not have been just a slap, but her life. However, she did not know the details. Instead, she glared at Lu Wuxin's back and cursed in her heart. Then, she glared at Tang Zheng as if she was about to spit fire. Tang Zheng ignored him and said with killing intent, If you dare to let me hear you speak rudely to Ding Dang again, I will definitely kill you, I promise. Yi Meiyu's heart turned cold, she was both embarrassed and angry, but she did not dare to refute, as she was completely intimidated by Tang Zheng's aura. A look of anger also flashed across Lu Wuxin's face. Tang Zheng had actually dodged her attack so easily. That slap not only hit Yi Meiyu's face, it was also equivalent to hitting her face. Especially when the others saw this scene, the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates were in disbelief, and their expressions changed when they looked at Tang Zheng and Lu Wuxin. Lu Wuxin felt his cheeks burning, and felt that he had definitely lost a lot of face in the hearts of the old subordinates. Immediately, she flew into a rage out of humiliation and roared, Tang Zheng, I will kill you. Shwa. The Wuxin Lu grew crazily, the willow branches danced in the air, sweeping towards Tang Zheng like a vicious whip. Tang Zheng did not retreat at all, he raised his sword and stabbed forward. This time he did not use the Flying Immortals from Outer Sky sword technique, but used the Taiji Yin Yang sword technique. His Taiji Yin Yang sword technique was becoming more and more proficient. With a flash of sword light, the surrounding chi underwent a huge change. Chapter 1144. Yi Meiyu was not familiar with Li Xiaotian, she only knew that she was once the holy maiden of the Li Palace. At that time she was high and mighty, and even Yi Xuanji had to respect her, so she was not someone she could come into contact with. Sizzle. However, this was different from the past. She Yi Meiyu was not a match for Tang Zheng, but how could she not deal with a remnant of the Li Palace? With a shout, she attacked Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian was not an ordinary person either, the bow in his hand flashed with a cold light, and shot towards Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu was a Yuanying Stage 1 cultivator, 2 levels higher than Li Xiaotian's Stage 8 Great Master, but Li Xiaotian's battle experience was far richer than Yi Meiyu's. Seeing the arrow flying towards her, Yi Meiyu revealed a look of contempt and easily dodged it. She extended her hand and directly grabbed towards Li Xiaotian. Seeing that she had easily dodged his attack, Li Xiaotian's heart flashed with a trace of surprise, but he did not panic. Instead he calmly moved his finger. Whiz. The arrow behind Yi Meiyu suddenly changed direction and turned back, shooting towards Yi Meiyu's back. Hearing the sound of the wind behind her, Yi Meiyu finally realized that something was wrong. She was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. It was already too late to turn around, and she only had time to move half a step to the left. The arrow brushed past her shoulder, bringing with it a dazzling stream of blood. Yi Meiyu sucked in a breath of cold air, her brows knitted together, and she became furious. You can actually hurt me too. The corner of Li Xiaoyan's mouth hooked up into a devilish smile, causing all living things to turn upside down. Without saying a word, he hooked his finger again, and the arrow seemed to be controlled by his arm. It was extremely agile and shot towards Yi Meiyu's chest. You're still coming? Yi Meiyu growled. The arrow hit Yi Meiyu's body and blood flowed down her chest. Li Xiaotian heaved a sigh of relief. The arrow had hit her heart, she was dead for sure. However, in the next second she saw an unbelievable scene. Yi Meiyu actually raised her head again, and the corner of her mouth revealed a strange smile that made one's hair stand on end. What happened? Li Xiaoyan's brain suddenly froze as if he had seen a ghost because she was very confident in her arrow. How could Yi Meiyu still laugh? Bam! Yi Meiyu grabbed the arrow and broke it into two. As if nothing had happened, she swaggered towards Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian subconsciously took a step back, then immediately stopped himself. He stared at Yi Meiyu with wide eyes and asked, "What kind of spell is this? How did you not die?" Yi Meiyu laughed sinisterly. You want to kill me with this little trick? Dream on. If an ordinary person saw this scene, they would probably be scared out of their wits. However, Yi Meiyu had experienced hundreds of battles, and her nerves had been tested countless times. Even if this was beyond common sense, she was not scared out of her wits. Instead, she gritted her teeth and erupted with endless fighting spirit. She once again drew her bow and shot towards Yi Meiyu. Whiz! The sharp arrow surged through the air, leaving behind a long tail. However, Yi Meiyu extended her index finger and lightly tapped the air. The arrow stopped, and the attack came to an abrupt stop, as if it had been immobilized. Li Xiaoyan's eyes widened again. She was very clear about the power of her arrow, but she did not expect it to be so easily resolved by the other party. Was there such a huge gap between her cultivation and Yi Meiyu's? She could not help but feel a sense of defeat. Yi Meiyu held onto the arrow and walked step by step to Li Xiaoyan's side. She aimed the arrow at Li Xiaoyan's heart and slowly poked it over. How could Li Xiaotian just sit there and wait for death? She immediately moved to the side, but to her horror, she found that she could not move at all, as if her feet had grown roots. What's going on? What did you do to me? The fear in Li Xiaoyan's heart quickly spread as she shouted loudly. The smile on Yi Meiyu's face became even more sinister. She thought to herself, how can you break my traceless dream spell? You're not Tang Zheng who can break my traceless dream spell time and time again. Li Xiaotian watched as the arrow pierced her heart, but she was powerless. The fear of death instantly enveloped her body and mind. She tried to struggle but to no avail. Li Xiaotian, wake up. You're dreaming. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from the sky, exploding in her ears like a clap of thunder. Her entire body trembled and her heart trembled. Could it be that this was really a dream? That voice was clearly Tang Zheng's voice. She quickly closed her eyes and tried her best to tell herself that this was a dream and not to believe what she was seeing. Although she did not know the traceless dream of nightmare, she knew that this voice definitely did not ring in her ears for no reason. There was definitely something fishy going on. Although she could not figure out the reason for the time being, she still used her own experience to deal with it. She focused all of her attention and abandoned all distracting thoughts to deal with all of this. Sure enough, when she opened her eyes again, everything in front of her had changed. She regained her freedom of movement. The arrow in Yi Meiyu's hand had already pierced her chest and was close to her clothes. He quickly retreated and shot another arrow. Yi Meiyu did not expect that the other party would escape at the last moment. She hurriedly retreated and dodged the arrow. She gritted her teeth and stared at Tang Zheng in the distance. If not for Tang Zheng discovering the clues and shouting, Li Xiaotian would have died without a doubt. Just now, Li Xiaotian stood in place like a puppet, waiting for death. He was like a fish on Yi Meiyu's chopping board, waiting for her to slaughter him. Tang Zheng understood Yi Meiyu's methods very well, and immediately realized that Li Xiaotian had fallen into a dream, so he quickly reminded him loudly. At last, Li Xiaotian narrowly escaped the calamity. The others also saw this scene. The former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor all knew of the great name of the nightmare and his traceless dream spell. They immediately realized that Yi Meiyu had used this spell and couldn't help but be curious. Even Wuxia, who was fighting fiercely with the Empyrean fairy, couldn't help but look at Yi Meiyu with a slightly different gaze. The most fundamental reason for all of this was because the nightmare's spell was too strange. Back then he was the only one who knew how to use the traceless dream. This was because the physique required to cultivate this spell was very special. It was not something that ordinary people could casually cultivate. But at this moment Yi Meiyu had successfully used it, and from the looks of it the power was not bad. Didn't this mean that the nightmare had also been revived? With the Nightmare Lord, their strength would rise to a whole new level. This was something worth celebrating. Lu Wuxin obviously understood everyone's thoughts and said regretfully, "Nightmare is no longer here. It was all because of this group of people. Yi Meiyu is Nightmare's disciple." Hearing this, it was as if thunder had struck the ground. Nightmare was so powerful and he had the traceless dream spell, but he had actually fallen into the hands of these people. It was too inconceivable. "Kill them and take revenge for the nightmare," someone shouted, stirring up the crowd. Wuxia's eyes were also filled with killing intent. When he was alive he and Nightmare were good friends. When he heard that his old friend had actually died in the hands of these people, the killing intent on his body poured out. It was extremely terrifying. Seeing that these people had been deceived by Yi Meiyu again, Tang Jing hurriedly reminded them loudly, "Don't believe her words, we didn't kill the nightmare, it was his good disciple Yi Meiyu." "Tang Jing, at this point do you still want to splash dirty water on me? Master died in your hands, I don't have the strength to avenge him, it's because I'm useless as a disciple. Seniors, please help me avenge my master and kill this person." Yi Meiyu pleaded pitifully. "Yes, kill him. He actually dares to slander Nightmare's disciple. Do you really think we're fools?" The voices of condemnation rose and fell, obviously not believing Tang Jing's words. Tang Jing sighed helplessly, thinking to himself, if you guys aren't fools, then what are you? Yi Meiyu was truly a good actress. He had no way of exposing her lies, so he decided not to waste his breath. A hint of cunning and complacency flashed across Yi Meiyu's eyes. The others no longer sat idly by and attacked together, most of them attacking Tang Jing. It was obvious that he was the primary target. The pressure on Tang Jing increased sharply. When he was facing Lu Wuxin, both sides were evenly matched and could not determine the victor for the time being. However, once the others joined in, he was clearly at a disadvantage. He fought and retreated, gradually retreating to the edge of the cliff. At the same time, the soul of the golden crow that was originally imprisoned by the Empyrean fairy's power in the sky finally broke free and soared into the sky, transforming into a sun that hung high above the 9 heavens. Immediately, other than the 3 souls of the golden crow that were shot down by Tang Jing, the remaining 6 souls of the golden crow, along with the original sun hanging high above their heads, descended from the sky and sprinkled down on the people's bodies. It was as if they were in a sauna, and large beads of sweat appeared all over their bodies. This group of powerful cultivators, who were almost invulnerable to cold and heat, felt uncomfortable under the roasting of the 7 suns. Tang Jing wiped the beads of sweat off his forehead. Looking at the crowd that was charging towards him again, he secretly clenched his teeth. He had already repelled the other party's attack once, but the tidal wave of attacks swept over again, causing him to be unable to deal with it. He had the intention to kill, so a few people died under his sword. This reminded him of his opponent's bloodthirst and anger, and the battle became more and more intense. The battle between the Empyrean fairy and Wuxia was too intense. It was too big and earth-shattering. The others wanted to interfere, but they did not have the strength to do so. These people all turned their firepower to Tang Jing and Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian's body was already covered in wounds, although she had broken Yi Meiyu's heart dream traceless spell. However, in a real face-to-face battle, especially when facing so many enemies, her cultivation was still too weak. Li Xiaotian once again realized her own shortcomings. Previously, she thought that her cultivation was advancing at a godly speed, but now, she realized that the current situation was not as good as before. In the past, the Great Master Realm could run amok, but now the Great Master Realm was not enough. The return of this group of cultivators had completely broken the original world's power system and balance, causing people to feel a sense of powerlessness and frustration. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.